Blog Talk Radio.
About this.
I bring my life to the table. I bring my right to the table. I bring health, wealth, knowledge, and self to the table. I bring no to ledge TV to the table. Conscious table. I bring no to ledge radio to the table. Conscious radio. Conscious Wikipedia. I bring DVDs, books, no to ledge media to the table. Killing fables to the families of the royals. I bring Kings County to the table. Restoring royalty. The melanated Clark Gables. Soldier culture to the tables. The superhead rules to the tables. I bring 7 heaven sea balls to the table. Soul water to the table. Red and blue, the Big Daddy Kane. Ready, willing, and able to walk it through my stables. Full length stables. Back from the future like Bishop and Cable. To introduce the freshmen to the X-Men. And all of their candy excellence.
No question, class is in session. Report to the chat room, pen and pad in hand. You wanna beat it early and beat the caravan. People storming the gate to get a plate. Them lines packed like the Happy Land. Either open up with the latest cuts or them rap tools. They're both out the latest trucks. From 9 to 11, we do it in the dark. Like we used to do it in the park for the most part. From the very second that the show starts, you're witnessing a pose off, think Mozart, huh? The love received so far has been so hard. There's a few dudes to front, but they medulla, they sharp, man, they so soft. Don't be thrown off, any Zoloft. Avoid them at all costs, like raccoons or skunks. But back to the regular scheduled program. The program is sponsored by 7 Heaven. What else in hell can you get an open line to heaven at 11:11? Emerge at the other end of those meditation portals and elevated walk tools, even some abort tools. Any questions, comments, or concerns, press 1. For everyone else, thanks for attending another session. I'm pleased to teach, but it's an honor to learn. Certainly, courtesy of KTL University.
Oh, please don't be frightened. I'm terribly sorry about this. You are?
Peace to you and yours, peace to you and yours. This is Know the Ledge Radio, and you are now rocking with the best. Yes, indeed, this is your host, Brother Blue Pill, very soon to be joined by my co-host, Brother Red Pill. Peace to you and yours, peace to you and yours. Welcome to another explosive episode of Know the Ledge Radio, i.e. KTL University. Okay? Welcome, family, back to join us for what promises to be another epic classic as we open the lines and welcome back our brother Taj Tarik Bey, joined by Ras Mariah Bey. Okay? The name of tonight's lecture, or tonight's class for that matter, is appropriately Concept Corrections. Okay, Concept Corrections, family. All right, I am awaiting my co-host. Brother Red, if you're on the line, press number 1, please. There. While I await his arrival, again, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you to the family who came out in droves on Tuesday and joined us for a monumental episode with our brother, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, right, for a very poignant topic, Ma'at and Islam, friend or foe, right? As a result of that show, as well as other shows subsequently before that, there's been a lot of inquiries and requests, you know what I'm saying, that people have been making for us to bring back Taj Tarik Bey and Ras Mariah Bey to answer a lot of unanswered questions. You know what I'm saying, a lot of areas that still seem to have, clouds of confusion surrounding them. So we put the show together to answer that call, you know what I'm saying, and bring back the experts for them to come forth and answer some of the family's most pressing questions. All right? Indeed. Let me begin the show, of course, by playing a word from our sponsors. I want to pay the bills early, since I seem to be forgetting to pay them until later on during the show. Let me get that out the way now. All right, family? So hold tight. We will be back very shortly.
From times of lore, ancients believed gold aided in prolonged lifespans and cured many diseases. It is proven to enhance mental astuteness and sharpen intuition. Gold aids in optimal bodily function and increases electrical conductivity and cellular electrical impulses. Gold can balance energy fields and is beneficial for opening and balancing the crown, heart chakra, and the third eye. One of the main benefits from an active third eye, or pineal gland, is the ability to have lucid dreams. This elixir of life is now available in 2 ounces for an amazing low price of $49.99. Our bodies are our temples, and Soul Gold Liquid Drops is essential to our transformation. Order now. Go to www.soulgoldbiz.com today.
Yes, indeed. Peace, family. All right, that's soulgoldbiz.com. I want to say thank you to everyone that has been supporting the site. Thank you to everyone who has signed up for the affiliate program as well. We are ironing out some kinks on the back end, and we will be getting in contact with everyone very shortly in regards to the affiliate program. All right? Again, Brother Red, if you're on the phone, please press number 1 so I can bring you in. All right? In the meantime, in between time, let me get into reading the description of tonight's episode. Again, family, this is Concept Corrections featuring Taj Tarik Bey and Ras Mariah Bey. All right? Nonetheless, Radio proudly presents an epic evening with Taj Tarik Bey and Ras Mariah Bey. The dynamic duo will be coming forth to bring clarity to a host of topics, inclusive but not limited to the confusion, misinformation, and misinterpretation of concepts pertaining to sovereignty, UCC, and Moorish affairs. Due to the overwhelming amount of questions and concerns that KTL has been receiving in regards to a wide range of topics, we have asked the elders, experts in their field, to come forth and qualify some of these inquiries. There will be an open line segment for callers to call in their questions, comments, and concerns. So please bring your pens and pads. This is guaranteed to be another explosive session of KTL University. Okay? Yes, indeed. Still awaiting my co-host. All right, here we go. Caller from the 347. Peace.
Peace, peace. Peace to the God.
Peace, Lord.
What's going on?
You know,
pardon me on the tardiness, but you know, this business that I'm involved in right now, this restaurant business, is kind of time consuming. So you know, we had a lot of a late crowd and whatnot. But I'm in the building. It was good.
No doubt. And, you know, I'm trying to gather myself as well. I just came off of a very rattling conversation with Sister Myra L's sister, Sister Miriam.
Oh, and, really?
Yeah, she relayed some information to me that's very unsettling, dealing with the untimely demise of her sister, and the fact that she has empirical proof that situation wasn't due to her complications with cancer, but rather it was, she called it a medical hit. You know what I'm saying? So, you know,
are you serious?
I'm absolutely serious. I'm relaying what was told to me in regards to that. You know, she's sending me over some documentation for us to review, you know, after the show. And we will be scheduling a program in the very near future because she feels that her sister actually even wrote requests for certain information to get out to the world so they would know what her condition was at the time of her death. You know, so that's very disturbing to me that this information is just now reaching us. But she you know, she has got some information to share, you know, that speaks to the fact that her sister was murdered in that hospital, you know. So we're going to have to deal with that as well, you know, quite possibly.
Well, you know, me and you are no strangers to the malpractice of these hospitals at the hands of, you know, these witch doctors, you know what I'm saying? We have a family member who was herself sabotaged, you know what I'm saying, in that system. So I would, you know, I'm eager to see the documents, and I'm definitely eager to tap into what's going on. Primarily because when I did hear about it, when the news reached me about 2 weeks ago, you know, it didn't hit me like what I was reading. My spirit didn't take it. Like, nah, that's not what's going on. Like, look into that.
It didn't sit well to register with my spirit as well. Like, it wasn't settled. Like, this is what it is. You know what I'm saying? The sister's time was allotted, and she passed on to another realm. It just didn't sit that particular way. So now the details have come out. You know, I took a very quick look at the documentation that she just sent me, and there's definitely some neglect. There's a bunch of suspicion at hand based on what she was telling me, you know, and just a series of things that once she gets into that explanation, I'm sure family will see as well that, you know, there's some issues at hand that we're going to be speaking of that lead directly into tonight's conversation. And that is when our family comes forth as vanguards of a particular movement with a particular pedigree of information that now puts them in a particular light where they can be considered, enemies of the quote-unquote enemies or the adversarial forces that want to keep this information out of the light of the family. Certain moves have to be taken to make sure that we are protecting our elders. And this comes on the heels of the email that I got yesterday, dealing with the fact that there are a number of our elders in the hands of medical care that are being dealt with very, improperly. You know what I'm saying?
They're being neglected.
They're being neglected. They're being neglected. And, you got Dr. Ben Alon Bey Ras. You got Brother Gil Noble. The other brother, I believe that he may be home with his family at this particular time.
Is that the brother Clemson?
Clemson Brown, yeah. So there are a host of our elders who put their lives on the line so that vital information can make it to the hands of their peer groups as well as those that come after them, where they will be able to, fortify themselves with information and do something substantial. Now,
yes,
as people continue to slander the information and people continue to debate whether this particular information has any validity, the adversarial forces are making plans, you know what I'm saying, to say, okay, we're gonna respond, and make sure that this person's legacy is shortened or desecrate them, the ritual death or what have you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but yet the community wants to concern with themselves with, are we going to debate this or should this be followed? Does this have any validity? You know what I'm saying? Is this paperwork? Is it for real? Is it holding the weight?
How many people are rich off of this paperwork? Does it really work? Why isn't the Moors balling?
Right. And clearly, this pedigree of information, like I said, is causing people to be signaled out for assassination and elimination. So, this show comes, as we always say, Allah is the best of planners, and He has provided the opportunity that we could bring forth our elders with some monumental information to finally put the foot down that not only is this information real and vital, but the time for it is now, and the time for games is over.
Yes, sir. I'm in total agreement with that. You know what I'm saying? This is definitely the time. You know what I'm saying? This is definitely the time. This week alone, just in my personal life and my trials and tribulations and, just things that I've witnessed, it just speaks volumes to the fact that, we just have to really just get this thing going. It's a lot of work to be done. You know what I'm saying? A lot of work to be done.
A lot of work.
Yeah, and the forces that are against our people, irregardless, so if you're doing something with your life or if you're not doing something, if you're, opening up a business versus, engaging in a hustle, they got adversaries that are there to checkmate you on that board on any level that you're playing on. Any level. It doesn't even matter at this point. From the lowest of lowest to the highest of highest, you will have a dualistic force that is present, that's there waiting to put you out of business or out of commission. And I've just been witnessing it, and the need for a joined, unified front, to move as a unified front, not one person being thrown out there versus a billion. You know what I'm saying? Not that, to see who's the proverbial David inside of this whole movement. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people actually manifesting that which they say they are about, and that's unity, and that's also, whatever group or organizations people are claiming that they belong to. It's really time to see these groups not move as individuals and groups, but to move as a group. Feel what I'm saying? Case in point, and I'm just throwing this one out there, shout out to the family that did manage to come through to support the restaurant that I'm a part of. But, it might have been 2 or 3 out of the conscious community. Everybody else that's come to patronize has been everybody else.
Right.
This is an upscale, high-class bakery and bistro that we opened right off of Ponce de Leon, like something to be proud about. Something to hold your head up and be proud. You got, I won't even get into the amount of money that got put into this restaurant for this thing to come forth. And the owners, the initial owners of the restaurant, they're not members of the conscious community, so to say. So it's not really, that's not who they market to. But I put it out there. I put it on my Facebook. I put it out on the thing, and it's and you need support. You know what I'm saying? When you do things like that, you expect people to come and support. You in the city, like if somebody opened up something in Harlem, a juice bar or something like that, you would expect family to come out in droves to show that support.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a trick bag right there. Have no
expectation. And at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it's all good. But I want to do, on the same note, I do have to give a shout out to the family that has come through to show support, regardless if they're on this phone or if they're part of this conversation or not. You know what I'm saying? And I also want to give a shout out to those who have answered the call when I put the call out there for vegan baked goods and whatnot. Shout out to Katoya. Shout out to the brother Gabriel. You know what I'm saying? He brought one of his family members through who she does vegan baked goods and whatnot. And I'm also saying tonight that if there's anybody in the Atlanta area who specializes in either raw food or vegan baked goods and things like that, holler at me. Hit me up on the Facebook under Fillmore. Or you could hit me on the phone. You know what I'm saying? My phone number is 347-650-0150 because I want to give you a chance, you know what I'm saying, to make some money, first of all, to be compensated for what you do with your the baked goods. I want you to be compensated by having a continued supply. Stream,
right.
And I also
they want you to shout the address out.
It's 265 Ponce de Leon. All right, 265-D Ponce de Leon. We on the same block with Nancy's Pizza, and MF Sushi was on that block too, but they closed down a few weeks ago. And it's Ponce de Leon and Penn Avenue or Penn Street. We open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the weekdays. You know what I'm saying? So, come through. Like I said, it's an upscale place. You know what I mean? You could bring your shorty there, or you could bring your dude there, have a brunch or a lunch or a date or some coffee or some tea. You know what I mean? Or a croissant. Whatever tickles your fancy. You know what I'm saying? You could come in and eat some seaweed if you want. I don't care. And it's a Wi-Fi bar, so you could come and do your business. But, like I said, these are some of the things, and that's just that's just a little blip. There's many conscious businesses that I'm visiting in Atlanta that actually need all of our support. You know what I mean? Like I saw the receipts for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Then I would ask my brothers and sisters that are so-called conscious.
Before you get into that, because I know, that needs to be gotten into. What's the name of the establishment?
Oh, La Marjorie. LaMajorie. La Marjorie.
Hey, continue, please.
Yeah, but many of the people that I question about the support that they received on these so-called, shopping, it was mammoth, the amount of money that was spent. You know what I'm saying? When I looked at the receipts, they were pulling out the gross domestic products of small countries and whatnot in one day. But people that were in these conscious businesses,
$51 billion of purchases were made on Friday, November 25th, a week ago today. You know what I'm saying? People broke bread, literally.
Yep. But, how much of that bread was being broke on businesses that we all are a part of, and then these businesses that we all claim that we patronize and stuff like that? That's my thing,
Indeed. In response to that, there's a movement being put together, and there's a page for it on Facebook called A Real Black Friday, 12/09/2011. All right? So 12/09/2011, they are asking the family to, quote-unquote, buy black. Now, for political correct purposes, and understand what we mean by that particular terminology. Spend your money with Moorish, melanated, carbonated people, okay? So you pick someone in the community that is of service, or that has a particular product. You can feel free to throw any Ocean 14 Corp product up in there, Soul Gold Water, 7 Heaven Sea Moss, or what have you. But there are many others out there that are doing their things. I'm going to drop the link in the chat room, and the family can inquire about that particular movement, that event that's coming up for next Friday. I think we're going to do something special on Tuesday's show to prep the family for it. We might have some of those businesses coming forth and introducing themselves to the global audience, let the family know who they are, what they represent. I know on my part, I got a lot of packages to send out. I got a lot of confirmations and stuff to check. Me personally, I just went through a period where I moved my family, we relocated, so I got to go through this whole process of unpacking and getting orders out and what have you, but I'm going to be up and ready, not only for next Friday, but this weekend, this Sunday in Harlem, at the King Simon 16th anniversary Bonanza featuring Dr. Baruch, Brother Polite, and guest speaker Brother Phil Valentine will be in the building. That's a monumental event that we do ask the family to come out, support your local businesses, your vendors that's going to be in the building, your lecturers, your elders, and priceless information that will be dispensed at the hands of the speakers. We had a show last Friday with Dr. Baruch and Dr. Phil Valentine. The same day when people were out spending $51 billion, them brothers was on the show hitting money shots. So we would ask anybody that missed that particular program, you could go into the archive. I also believe that they stopped by Abundance Child yesterday and did their thing over there on the Abundance Network. So you can check that out as well. All right?
Yeah, shout out to Abundance Child.
All right. So, yeah, you got options for next Friday. You got options for every day leading up to next Friday. La Marjorie, that's how you pronounce it. You know what I mean? And there are many other venues that are in many other states.
Nah, my thing is, I'm so good. Like, don't come there to support a black business. Like, if you want to come to eat, just come to eat. Like, don't come with the, I'm here, wearing a black headband and all of that. I'm good. Real talk. Like, that's not even what this is about. You know what I'm saying? If people want to come and eat and come to, like I said, a nice spot that's real dope and brand new, come through. But not with no sympathy and, or attached to we're going to eat here on Friday to say that we spent our money with black businesses. I'm good.
All right.
No disrespect.
Indeed. I feel you. All right. So,
yep.
We are here at the 9:30 hour. You know what I'm saying? A half hour into the show. I feel that we said everything that needed to be said that leads up to what's going to be said, you know what I'm saying, by tonight's special invited guests, Taj Tarik Bey and his sister, Ras Mariah Bey, also known as RV Bey, okay, the proprietor of RV Bey Publications, all right? So, with no further ado, I want to go to caller calling from 617. One of our guests calling from the 617.
617? I'm not sure. Open up the line.
Okay, calling from the 617. 44.5. Peace.
Hotep.
Hotep.
Yes, Daoud Akibalan Bey, Boston.
Oh,
Islam, brother. Peace.
Brother Daoud. Yes.
Yes. Let me see how I'm starting here. Our economic situation, and I say
right.
out. I say
hold on,
out.
Brother Daoud. I'm currently searching the call queue for tonight's guest. We will get back to you. Okay.
I thought you called my number.
Tonight's guest. I know you had your hand up.
Yes,
hand
sir.
up. So I didn't know who it was in the call queue. I don't have their numbers in front of me. So we will get back to you very shortly, brother, okay?
Peace.
Peace.
Okay, I got a 215 hand up.
Yeah, yes, sir. That should be one.
Okay. Caller from the 215-730. Peace.
Islam, good brother.
Islam.
Peace.
How's it going, family?
All is well.
Man. All is well, brother.
All right, good brother.
How's everything with you?
Oh, pretty good. Trying to keep up with the people, man.
Oh, absolutely. People trying to keep up with you.
Well, yeah. Yeah, because they're waking up around the world, man.
Introduce yourself to the globe.
Yeah, they're waking up around the world, man. They tired of this colonialism, any kind of way you look at it.
Yeah, but introduce yourself.
Yeah, I wanted to mention one thing, too, with that Brother Daoud was bringing in. I don't know everything he was going to ask, but he was mentioning the economics. And keep in mind that the U.S. corporation is operating in name only because it's defunct. It has actually been dissolved. And the whole functions of that the Jesuit order through the U.S. corporate religious corporation is operating of our virtues by virtue of deeds of trust. Everything is operating by a state, and they're getting credits off of our states. So essentially, we the people, particularly the Moors of the Western Hemisphere, are actually the creditors, unknown or unacknowledged. That's what's really happening. And because they're not operating with money, they're operating on buying and selling derivatives on an estate that don't belong to them, i.e., which is our inheritance. And that's the fact.
Mm. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And conceptually, Moors need to start claiming their estate.
Now,
well,
go ahead.
We were present at one of the classes that was done in at the National Black Theater. I believe it was 2 Wednesdays ago when you broke down the concept that you just spoke of in such a fine detail that it almost reconfigured the way that I was looking at this whole economic, just economics in general, because you took it a step further by explaining, to the audience, and also when you just touched on it just now about the fact that this defunct corporation was utilizing the people as actual money.
Yes, they are human capital. That's why we read that executive order with the budgeting committee, and it has listed in it human capital. Well, people need to know what that actually means. It's the estate of the people, because the U.S. I think, really, let me back up some. I think one of the major problems that we have with people understanding the economics is that although even with some people that understand that the U.S. corporation has been systematically robbing the gold and silver, which is why they came here and conquered the West in the first place, and that they were substituting, i.e. what is called fiat claims of Rome, as a substitute, and by virtue of control of the Moorish Empire, have been wearing the Moorish fez in all their secret societies ritualistically, and have simply been selling instruments from a what you would call a ward keeper's position, a wardship tenure under military tenures, the estate of the Moroccan Empire, etc. And then, as you already understand, the Master Mason Dwight Eisenhower shut down consular courts in '54 before U.S. and Britain, etc., released their protectorate position on the kingdom on the east side, when that same principle was to take place here in the West, in the heartland of the Moroccan Empire, because after all, Nouadhra Ali brought the birthright back since 1913, and that is certainly as far before 1956 on the other side. However, due to the infiltration and COINTEL operatives here in North America, the real nature of the Moorish movement has been pretty much misrepresented. Therefore, the people have been declared incompetent. And then they had a lot of what you would call so-called, and I qualify, so-called black ministers who were paid off to run around telling people civil rights marches and stuff like that, while they were getting paid by the Jesuits with a 501c3 to keep these people calm and passive like little pet animals while their birthright was being stolen, and they were getting a 501c3 tax-exempt status from the Jesuits and getting paid by their believers and followers at the same time, etc., and then telling the people that there was a separation of church and state, when in fact the very codes to destroy our families came directly from the church, etc., i.e. Christian black codes of 1724, which is also derived from codes noirs of the Franciscan Brotherhood, etc., which is really the opposite. Which is really the operative law policies here dealing with these Asiatics that are branded black.
Indeed. Because we're going to hear this term, Jesuits, a lot tonight, for the family who may have only heard of Jesuits through name and not about who they truly are, could we briefly give it a breakdown about who exactly are the Jesuits that you're speaking of?
Well, first of all, I want to give you props, brother, for being consistent and making sure that you bring different thoughts upon the subject of redeeming our people from the different many active minds and active brothers and sisters who have been working to uplift fallen humanity, who have been using their efforts, et cetera, to aid the people. And I want to give you props for maintaining that forum. Now, from a principal point, it is very important for the people to know the foundation of the politics in the Western Hemisphere and the world, period. Lacking that understanding would have people pretty much deal with symptoms as opposed to dealing with the roots of their problems. The foundation of the economic political systems in the modern contemporary world is based in the secret Treaty of Verona, 1213, between King John of England and the Jesuit order, i.e. of Rome, the bishopric of Rome. That is rooted in the honor and the pledge to Pope Innocent III under the Spanish Inquisition, that is actually the Inquisition against the Moors and the Yahudi, who people call Jews, which is these Asiatics who are now called Negroes, black, colored, whatever they call themselves this week, who are the direct bloodline of the ancient Canaanite Moabites and keepers and true possessors and the direct descendants of the ancient Moabites, whose empire extends from northeast Africa to southwest Africa, across the great Atlantis, even into North, Central, South America, including the adjoining islands, the Atlantis Islands, which are now called Americana collectively, etc., which is in the secret societies referred to essentially from the heartland, the North Gate, which they refer to themselves as the keepers of the North Gate. And that is the whole foundation of the politics, not only of the Western Hemisphere, but all the modern world. If that is not understood, people have a tendency to deal with the symptoms and not actually the root cause, therefore limited capacity amongst the masses to actually resolve problems because they don't understand the politics. The other issue is, under the doctrine of discovery coming directly from the church, and this is with an understanding and a knowledge that the one that they called Jesus, whose name was Yeshua, was not a Christian. And they lie on him in order to steal the inheritances of the actual royal bloodline, which is these Asiatics here, who are direct bloodline, and the inheritors of this estate. And that is where actually the nature of codes Noah has its origin. And so they instituted as a substitute. This is one of the reasons why they would not allow the Asiatics of the North Gate to read for over 125 years by law and threat of death. And this is also why they had over 300 years of book burnings in order to kill the culture or to suppress it to such a degree that they could put the heirs of the estate in check or take them into what is known as a reverse order of the Dark Ages. As the Moors brought the Europeans out of the Dark Ages with the Renaissance, the European order of the Jesuits of Rome came on a mission to actually reverse seats and actually counteract the same thing against the very descendants of the founders of civilization.
Of the Enlightenment, exactly.
Yes, which is exactly what we're dealing with absolutely right now. Now, as a
so
go ahead.
I'm sorry. We are living in our proverbial, quote-unquote, dark ages.
Is exactly correct. And that's why we refer to as living in darkness or black. And this is where the science of the word black is actually used. And in its denotative form, it means loss of consciousness. And, of course, our people think that it means Afrocentric identity, which it does not at all. It's a Middle English word, and it is used in a sociology form, meaning that loss of consciousness, and you can go in an Oxford dictionary and see it very clearly. Also, it means wicked, foul, disdain, separate from the rest of society, etc., banned, etc., negative. All of it is negative, plus it's a casting of a spell in one word. And this is also why people must understand etymology so they can understand that they're casting spells upon themselves in the name of trying to be Afrocentric. The other deal of it is for a substitute of the stealing and the transferring of the wealth to the Queen of England, whose pivotal point is to in the point of the North Gate, or what you would call in the point of the East, what they would call Ishtar or Isis, whereas we would face east. So in the point of April, and you would be dealing, as you would say, coming into the East Gate, they would have to give tribute to the popes of Rome. And this is why they collect for the Inquisition revenue services, which they now call the Internal Revenue Services, in April the 15th. in that area of time for them to make the transfer for the people to make sure they give tributes so that the queen can pay the popes, etc. And that's what that's for. Now, and for the people not to understand that their birthright has been stolen or that they're actually dealing with vampires, they created what is called in blind faith. They removed the H and they switched the A and I, and they created what is called by Roman edict fiat. And fiat is essentially a system of bookkeeping by digit alone, and then using that as a measurement of inputs and outputs, just like you deal with an electrical system. And that electrical system is why they use the word currency for current. And they dial it up through the mathematics of issuing these digital notes, which are actually notes of debt and not notes of wealth. But after a few generations, the people start believing that they have money. It is not money. The money is gold and silver coin, which is what the Christians came here for in the first place. Now, if they can convince their overseer leader guys, who usually have one foot in the church and one foot in the back of the White House, pretending that there's a separate issue, and getting paid off by the Jesuits through the Skull and Bones member Lyndon B. Johnson, with the issuance of the 501c3 agreement between them and the popes not to make any critical statements about government, because that's what it's based in, and thereby getting what you call tax-exempt status, knowing at the same time that true religion needs no tax-exempt status because there just is no jurisdictional crossover at that point. But they have not been teaching the people religion. They've been teaching the people dogma and calling it religion. And so what they're calling religion is a fraud. It's dogma. What they've been calling money is a fraud. It is fiat. And what they've been calling jurisprudence and law is a fraud. They get in color of law. And all of that trinity of activity is actually how the U.S. corporation runs under the demonology systems of the popes of Rome. This is why they say democracy and not republic, as required as any corporate state to be a part of the union. They must maintain and have within their state constitutions a republican form of government. And this is why when they and they also registered all so-called Negroes, blacks, and coloreds, or whatever we're calling ourselves this week, as Christian property in Delaware under the 14th Amendment as human capital. And it is upon the estate of these fallen Moors that the United States has been run, i.e. they've been living off the people's virtues. And what they've been doing is taking all the instruments, whether birth certificates, marriage certificates, driver's license, and any other instruments issued by them, and all of them, including the fact that their different names are all deeds of trust, i.e. dead pledges, which is what the word mortgage means, and the people themselves are the pledge. And this is the basis of capital budgeting, which they call human capital, translation, chattel. Now, as these people become conscious and they nationalize, that starts killing these instruments that they have around the world, because now countries recognize that the heirs of the estate are waking up. And so the people can't continuously, lawfully call these people incompetent and accuse us of abandoning our estate, which is basically what they've been doing. Because as long as the people demonstrate incompetence, they can be declared incompetent, and therefore gives the corporate state, who have listed themselves as the trustees of the estate, mandate over the estate. That's why any mortgages or instruments moved by them must always have listed in the mortgage that the alleged buyer is not a buyer but a tenant, but yet they're burdened with the tax of an ownership, which is a conflict of law, non-disclosure, and a complete and total fraud. Back to the point why Moors must nationalize and claim their estate. And these instruments start dying, and so they must be prepared for this collapse that is inevitable. And that's why we need each other.
Yes, indeed. Can you briefly describe and define the term escheat?
Escheat is the process used by the corporate states And that's a legal term. And this is where, now I'll tell
Can you spell it out for the family, please?
Yes. Escheat. That is capital E, S, C, H, E, A, T, S, cheat. And what it is as an example on the art or the legal process of cheating someone out of an estate is by, one, putting a name on them that does not originate with their bloodline, i.e., this is one of the motives as to why the European families force their names, their cognomen, or what they would call typically the last name on all Moorish Americans, so that whatever our people would buy or sell with the mark or the number of that name, it would automatically relegate it to state jurisdiction, i.e. the corporate state, which the masses would think is referencing the land, but is actually a private holding, security holdings corporation that's constructed absolutely on paper and paper alone. But they would pretend or represent themselves as jurisdictional power of the republic of the land itself, therefore creating deception. And the people would use these instruments innocently, even go and get married, not knowing that those were mortgages that they were being accused of selling their family, present and future. And they would use that claim as the people abandoning all inheritances. And then once that name was in place, Smith, Jones, Johnson, etc., when these people bought things, they were thinking that they were owning things, and they were automatically listed as wards of the state, whereas the state would not have to account for the infant heir, the body, or the profits until the people reach maturity, i.e. females 16 and males 21. And this is why they created the legal moniker that is known as minority, which means irregardless of the age, the people would be considered minors, thus unable to inherit an estate. And this cheating in law constitutes that there is no capable or qualified heir to inherit the estate. Thereby, the state refers or relinquishes the property back to the state as there are no qualified heirs, and therefore the state gets mandate to continue to act as trustee over all hereditaments, both corporal and incorporeal. That is as cheating.
Excellent. Thank you, brother.
Yes. And this is why our people never accumulate what is referred to as old money, no matter how many generations, i.e. institutionalized poverty in perpetuity. Yet they are wealthy at the same time. You see the point?
Now, to tell one of our people who financially may be experiencing burdens such as college debt, credit card debt, mortgage, rent, and other forms of financial burden that actually many people suffer from nowadays.
Their debt.
To tell our people who may be experiencing that, or who may not be experiencing it, who may have money in their so-called bank account, or they may have land and things of that nature. They may have material wealth. To tell them that they're wealthy. Many people would say, brother, you're dealing with feel-good, you're dealing with that feel-good stuff again, because there's nothing wealthy about being in debt and not having no money. I got rabbit ears in my pocket. I don't feel wealthy. How can I be wealthy?
And this is back, and I understand, understand, and agree with you when the people are looking at this simply from a symptom perspective, which is logical. Yes. Meaning that when people don't understand what money is and what money is not, and when they keep saying they have money when they don't have money, you already know that they're under the spell. That means if someone has fiat in their pocket, tons of it, which means they can go, pretty much what we consider buying and selling things almost loosely at will and assuming that they have money. They do not have money. They're moving debt notes. That's the first thing. And it must be understood when you have a credit card, they're not giving you anything. They create an account under the straw, and then they use your name to manage the account, and then they just simply discharge it with a 1099 OID to the Jesuit order through the IRS in your name as your estate keeper. And that's what actually happens. And the corporations transfer their debt to you when the debt tax is on the corporations. The other deal is all mortgages, the corporate states being because they're in operation of an estate that is not theirs, they cannot issue titles. They have no titles to give. So when they're dealing with cars, they will give what is known as a certificate of title. Make sure you pay attention to OF, of title. And there is no deed that is distributed in any of the corporate states under the United States jurisdiction of the Jesuit of Rome that lists anybody as an allodial possessor. It lists them all as tenants, and a tenant is a renter. This is the reason why they can impose bills on people and force people to buy insurance policies for property that they think is theirs. They're only sharecropping. Therefore, someone with a pile of fiat may be doing, how do you say, on a comfort level better than someone that has none, but they still don't have money. They're just having currency credits of their own that they don't even know is their own. You see the point?
Mm-hmm.
That's why they create the account number. And all they're doing is regulating your account. In other words, the same way the banks discharge those accounts in your name, unbeknownst to you, you could do the same thing. But they're not going to teach you that, are they? This is the reason why when you see some people across the country, when they begin to really understand birthright and they start challenging these corporations, whether it's on a mortgage or credit card, this is the reason why it messes up the system. Because it's their estate. They just don't know it's their estate. You see the problem? Meaning that they don't have any debt. They're convinced that they have debt. It's reversed. The debt is on a U.S. corporation. The wealth is yours. And you're actually the creditor, thinking that you're the debtor. They traded places with you, using your name.
That's a hard one to swallow.
No, it's very simple once you understand it.
Right.
Always look at everything.
It definitely is.
Remember, always look at everything in our relation. The relationship is dishonorable. However, the relationship between the people and the U.S. corporations and their subdivisional enclaves that they call the states of, as opposed to New York, say as an example. Instead of New York State, right, they'll say the state of New York. That's a code for the Jesuit order. You already know that comes under the democracy order of the demons.
Right,
because
as a corporate
New York
fiction.
State Republic comes under Constitution law. You see? State of New York is a piece of paper floating in the middle of the ocean. They're dealing with admiralty and maritime law and bottomry and equity. They ain't dealing with Constitution law. They're dealing with human capital called chattel. They don't even hide it. It's just that the people won't read.
Right. For the family, because I want to clarify this, because we continuously seem to be having these shows, and then some people will get it, and then a lecturer will come along and say, you know, they're having the witch hunt on Moors. You people better get away from that stuff, and then people will go back to sleep. You know what I'm saying?
Guess what?
Tide of the Matrix will overcome on.
They're waging war on us. They're waging war on us. They've been doing it since what? The Spanish Inquisition. And the people can't figure it out yet. You got to recognize it's got to be casualties and war, isn't it? Because the rule is honor your mothers and your fathers that your days may be long upon the earth land, right?
Yep.
Right? Now, for the people who think it's contrary, they should be challenged to find Black Adonia on the map in Africa. Find Negro Dina on the map in Africa. Find Colored Defia on the map in Africa. or a map in North America, or a map in Central America, or a map in South America, or a map in Europe, or a map in Asia, or a map anywhere on the planet called Earth. No such people exist and no such names exist. They're all brands. If they refuse to accept that, that's on them. However, that's called in law abandonment, isn't it?
Indeed.
Well,
and
some people are Martians.
If they abandon their bloodline, that means they've abandoned all inheritances, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
And certainly all these Europeans and Asiatics, ritualistically, and they don't necessarily hide it, in all their secret societies, they wear the Moorish fez, don't they?
Yes, they do.
They do.
And that certainly ain't wrong. It certainly ain't wrong.
Everybody ran out to see Edgar, J. Edgar.
and that great seal of the ancient Moorish nation, which is the seal of civilization on the planet, is back on that Federal Reserve note, but none of those politicians speak under it, do they?
Not at all.
Nope.
But
You've never seen them in front of the pyramid.
It's there clear as day, isn't it?
It's there.
Yeah, it's right there.
And it says the Great Seal, doesn't it? And under the other one, it says of the United States, which is a preposition which means a substantial connector. Why no one speaks under it? Because it is the seal of the heirs of the North Gate. See the point?
Right.
It ain't even
now,
a secret. It's in their face.
Wait, one or two, before I continue, I want to ask, what number should the sister Ras Mariah Bey be calling from? I want to get her engaged in the conversation as well. What area code should she be calling? Should I be looking for?
She would be 856. She'd be in Jersey. She'd be 856 and 856 or 609.
Okay, I don't see an 856 or 609 as of yet.
I don't think that she has an outside area.
Right.
Yeah, Sister Ras, if you're on the line, please press the number 1 on your phone so we could promptly open up your line.
Yes, Sister Ras, if you are with us, please press the number 1 so I can bring you into the conversation. Part 2, what I wanted to present to you is, in the chat, some people are receiving this information. Others still are bewildered by this particular information. What people want to know, on this particular program, we speak often about solutions, how to actually deal with these particular situations. And because there are a lot of different streams of information floating around out there, a lot of people are grasping on different ways that they feel can deal with these particular situations. What would be your answer in terms of the solution? How does someone navigate through these choppy waters?
Well, let me say this, brother, until she comes on. When you hear us, Ras, come on in. But let me say this to you, good brother.
Yes.
The reason I present it, and as you know, when we're doing class in different places, you'll see me, there's a lot of things that we can discuss. And just like you said, there's different streams of thought. And all of them are, in essence, good, correct, and we need all of them. Are we clear?
Indeed.
That's the qualification. Yes. However,
indeed,
our major problem collectively is that makes us ineffective is that people do not understand the politics, and they keep coming at this thing with the symptoms or with emotional claims of racism and other issues when the issue is birthright theft. The emotions that are behind it, though passionate, does not resolve the problem unless they deal with the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is the secret Treaty of Verona. And if they don't understand that, that puts us at a disadvantage because what people feel about the issue is, it can be emotionally good and emotionally satisfying. But that's not the game of chess that's being played. It's the Treaty of Verona. So if the people are not aware of the politics that's actually corrupting their lives, can they fix anything? If you're on a highway, we're on a highway, we can be all family and feeling all good about each other, and the vehicle we're in breaks down. If somebody don't know something about the engineering or the function of that vehicle, we will be sitting there next week. Are we right or wrong?
Correct.
Can you give them, for the family that want to do the research and want to go on Wikipedia or Google or something further than that,
all right,
give them the year of the treaty?
The secret Treaty of Verona. As a matter of fact, you can even get snips of it if you do some research in Washington in the congressional records, where the Congress even discusses it, but they only do snippets because they already know that this is what's running this thing. The secret Treaty of Verona, 1213 A.D.
Thank you.
And when you look at that Treaty of Verona, keep in mind that it is directly the treaty agreement between King John of England and Pope Innocent III, Roman Emperor. And their military strategy for world conquest is called the Spanish Inquisition. And the Spanish Inquisition is a way of hiding the real history because it actually is the Inquisition against the Moors and Yahudi, or what you call Jews, i.e., and that is the real Jews, the Moors, the true heirs of, or the sovereigns of the planet, that are now called by misnomers Negroes, black people, colored people, Indians, West Indians, Latino, etc. Those are the direct descendants of, i.e., the ancient Canaanite Moabites who received permission from the pharaohs of Hykupta, that we call Egypt, thousands of years ago to occupy this part of the land. They are the heirs of this vast estate, which is why Rome runs the world from this overthrown estate of what they call, rightfully, in its cosmological name, the North Gate. And that's where you get that term that is used in secret societies when they refer to themselves as keepers of the North Gate. Some of the dynamics of that manifest politics is demonstrated in their movie, The Wizard of Oz, and it's also demonstrated in the Da Vinci Codes. And that's the truth. And logically, that being the real foundation of the politics, whether one doesn't matter what or how do you say school of thought one comes from, that real history cannot change, because that's what it's from. So it doesn't matter what so-called religions that people claim, and it doesn't matter what so-called school of thought they come from. If they don't know the real politics, that would limit our effectiveness, wouldn't it?
Indeed. Yes, it would.
So now, if I'm coming from, say, the Moorish Science Temple, or the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, or the Old Canaanite Temple, or the Nation of Islam, or from some Baptist church in the South, or from some Methodist church in the South, or from some Episcopalian church in the South, and if I got Asiatic blood of African descent, this estate is still our estate, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. That isn't separated. Yeah, it's still.
Because we come from
some bloodline.
Philosophy doesn't change the fact of the attack of Rome, does it?
No, it doesn't.
And they are carrying out their mission, regardless of how passive we are, or how divided we are, or how opinionated we are, or who think they got the right noodle soup. The rules of the operations of the Treaty of Verona is being carried out, whether through the Discovery Doctrine, whether through national security, whether through the King Albert Plan, whether through the Rex 84 Plan, et cetera, et cetera. They're all extensions of the same war. And if we don't get it, does it matter to them? Because they're going to carry out what they got to carry out. And if we're sitting around debating what school of thought we come from, our concept is wrong, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Because guess what? They got an oath. They have an oath. And they are carrying out the mission of Rome. Because Rome's mission is to conquer the world. And that arm for world conquest is the Spanish Inquisition. And whether people believe it or not is irrelevant, because they've certainly been carrying it out. Our problem is that we've been running around trying to find belief systems when they've been dealing with facts. We've been trying to find some idol god to believe in, and they gave us what? Dogma, and our people think they've been getting religion when all these secret societies, they've been studying the truth of religion and running us and ruling us with our own science. And our people have been tossing it out like, how you're throwing the baby out in the bathwater because the water looks dirty.
Yeah.
We've been abandoning our own house and our own culture because they hide it under other names, like masonry and other stuff like that, and the people don't even know that's actually Islam, the science, and Gnosticism, which they call Judaism. It's all codified under that. And our people just think of some kind of weird stuff that somebody else is doing, and they reject it, called devil worship, don't they?
Yeah, they get spooky with it.
And they're being ruled by their own science. This is what keeps this man so cool. This is what keeps him so much in power, because the people don't recognize that the priesthood themselves is really the devil. And that the devil was a creation of the papacy of Rome. It's a myth.
Yep.
It's a hard lesson.
Dante's Inferno.
That's the truth.
Indeed.
It's hard, but that's the truth. And that's the secret to their power. Because the people are so looking for the mystical devil, they don't know he got a reverse collar looking right at them, pulling them into the pit. That's why they call their rostrum the pulpit. They even do it right there. They're mocking the people right there. They're mocking the people right in their faces. And you know what protects them?
What's
the
that?
people's own arrogance. The people's own arrogance is what protects them.
Indeed.
And that's what makes it difficult for us to bring remedy. You see? And as a matter of fact, the cap on top of it, the world governments had to come together and write about 5 different sets of law. Rights of indigenous people, international or unanimous direct declaration of human rights, human rights treaty enforcement, i.e. the rights of the child, and each one of them, they declare these people have a right to a nationality. How come that information not pressed to the people? There's something like called sellout, ain't it?
Yeah, how come that's not preached from the pulpit? All of these laws have been created to aid and abide the people. Yeah.
All the nations of the earth have addressed that. How come that's not common knowledge in our communities? Because unless they claim if they can't claim their bloodline, they get no estate, do they?
No, they don't.
And I think recently with the developments that we've seen coming out of Penn State, all the way down to Atlanta with the recent developments that we've seen, coming via Eddie Long, what I'm saying, that we see what game is being played.
With all due respect, those institutions didn't fall to that. That's part of their rituals.
And that's what they said.
Yes, why do you think the students, rioted when they fired Tarik? Because a lot of them, took part in them rituals. They're angry because it exposed them. They weren't concerned about them children. Them children are just objects. You see, right to this day, they keep talking about trying to protect the interests of these people. You hear little talk about those children. They don't care about those children.
People in the institutions. The people in the institutions, right.
Like that. From day one. They didn't fall to that. They just got exposed, that's all. People keep thinking that has something to do with divine order and all that kind of stuff. They're naive. But that's again why it's difficult to get our people out of the darkness into light. Because they keep thinking these houses are houses of the divine order of godness and all that kind of stuff. And the people are hypocrites because they know that the one they called Jesus wasn't Christian. He was Yahudi, what you call a Jew. He was a rabbi of the rabbinate. Everybody knows that. And his teachings came almost strictly from Kabbalistic instruction of the ancient Gnostics of the Asiatic African world. Please. They know that. But then if they tell the truth, that means they got to change their position. This is another reason why people around the world don't have too much compassion for our people in the condition, because they look at it as black-hearted hypocrites. Always going around the world fighting people that never did nothing to them to keep this European in power, and then complaining how he treats them. Please.
Yeah, that's not worthy of respect.
No, that's disgrace.
And compassion.
And then they wonder why other people come from other countries, make all kind of economic progress, and don't school us to what's happening with national and international law and importing, exporting without burdens of what you call corporate person burdens of heavy regulations to make sure that we don't get into business or that we're regulated out of business under the Christian Black Codes of 1724, i.e. via the 14th Amendment crap.
Exactly. Now, I wanted you... Go ahead, bro. I was just going to add on that you don't see other nationalities that come over here to the Americas complaining about not being able to be treated right economically.
You got that.
They don't participate in that. You do not see that. You see the Mexicans say, don't kick us out because we get money.
They're not at Occupy Wall Street. They're not down there.
They're not over there. No, they're not there.
They occupying 34th Street selling Gucci bags. They occupying Canal Street selling Gucci bags right up the block, while the European sons and daughters is in Zuccotti Park talking about they can't get a fair shake.
Well,
something ain't right about that.
No, what it is, the middle class European is the new nigger, and he's not pleased.
Not at all. What I wanted to ask
now, they build upon our children in school that this was a democracy, didn't they? Now remember, George Washington, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, with Thomas Barclay, agent in business, under the authority and protection of Sultan Muhammad, were sanctioned to do business in the Moroccan dominions, weren't they? And they were all deists, weren't they? They weren't Christians, they were deists. And they warned those people and says, you now have a republic if you're willing to keep it. But what did they do? They started subverting the republic in order to hold the Moors that were defeated into slavery and branding them black, and put their names on them as a curse and a title of possession, and been using us as capital and our estate. And now that the wheels have turned, they want the republic back, don't they? Well, guess what? The U.S. corporation passed color of law that no U.S. citizen can contest public law, because the public law belongs to popes. And since they say they're Christians and U.S. citizens, they can't contest. Therefore, they have no sovereign right and no sovereign power, because they gave up their birthright, claiming to be white people, which they are not. That's why they're sitting around doing their sit-in Wall Street stuff. And then they're angry at the Mexicans because the Mexicans, being nationals, start using the 14th Amendment that was used to house our people to do what they call anchor babies, so they wouldn't need green cards. Now the Europeans are caught with the dilemma of wanting to dismantle the 14th Amendment in order to control immigrants, but at the same time, if they dismantle it, they expose the fraud because they got our people housed in that with their Master Mason Negro leader preacher guys who've been frauding our people all this time, making them think that these people love Jesus type thing, while screwing our people and casting our people as Christian property under the 14th Amendment in Delaware as artificial persons, i.e. the human capital that have run this country. Well, guess what? The cat's out of the bag, and he ain't getting back in.
What I would like you to do, because, you know, the news cycle always provides these rare opportunities to illustrate what's being said and go a little bit deeper. Now, some information came out very recently about them granting corporations the right to declare themselves as persons, thus enabling them to participate in campaign, quote-unquote, fundraising. Mm-hmm. Now, can you use that particular example and try to
elucidate to the family what exactly is meant by a corporation being a person or a person being a corporation?
Now, I'm going to tell you two things. One, the so-called corporate person, etc., and the 14th Amendment powers, but also the martial law that they've been talking about in Congress of enforcing now that these people are out there marching. See, because we march and pray and keep hope alive and all that type of stuff, middle-class European like to kill people's parakeets and everything else in the house because it's there. They're not going to take Negro status comfortably. You get the point? We march and pray on it and keep hope alive. They will do stuff to these congressmen. You understand?
Oh, yes, indeed.
So right now they're talking about martial law. But they don't need to talk about martial law because it's already been going on anyway. The other issue is that when they closed the Freedmen's Bureau after they got some of those Negro preacher overseer guys to help them undermine it, it only stayed over about 3.5 to 4 years. They closed the Freedmen's Bureau because they would have had to get the land back, and they would have to deal with the 3630 parallel and give under the 13th Amendment, the original article of amendment with its 20 sections, they would have had to give almost all the land back. And so what did they do? They hid it, took it out of the newspapers, etc., only exposed 2 articles in the 13th Amendment, and then they created the 14th and 15th Amendment to cover up the original 13th Amendment, and then they created in 1868 the artificial person, i.e. the corporate entity, artificial straw man, and listed all Negroes, blacks, and colored as Christian property in the state of Delaware, etc., and then created all these enclaves for the Jesuits, etc., and that is the artificial person. And so in law, person means corporation unless otherwise stated, i.e. as a divine human being manifest in human flesh, or what is known as a natural person. And so the people not being properly educated think that person means a living human being. It does not. Person means corporation unless in context properly described as a natural person. And thus the implication that they are now recognizing these corporate entities as persons is a lie. It's a falsehood. It's been that way since 1868, right after they closed the Freedmen's Bureau. That's the truth. And it's just that people are waking up now, so they're acting like they're just now doing things. No, that's what got us in this situation in the first place, them institutionalizing slavery through the 14th Amendment. This is the reason why they use all the black leaders to list their people under the 14th Amendment. That's why the corporation, because it's human capital, that's why the CEO has to sign every 20 years or so, i.e. every other praetor or what they call president, just so that this human capital can even vote. And they ain't even figured that out yet. And anybody, a child can figure out that that's not constitutional law. Why it only applies to people called Negro, black, and colored. All other nationals and all other human beings don't have to have no Civil Rights Act signed every 20 years or so for them to vote. Look how they was talking about all the so-called black leader preacher guys was complaining, marching and stuff when Desert Storm, when Bush Sr., wouldn't sign the Civil Rights Act for these people who claim to be Negroes, blacks, and colored to vote with their European Christian names, and they was all upset because they're fighting for the country in Iran and Iraq and all that kind of stuff, and now they can't even vote in their country. They ain't citizens of this corporation. They're property of the corporation. It is that arrogant ignorance of trying to be somebody they're not that keeps getting us into this mess. And then they complain about Bush Sr. not signing the Civil Rights Act. That should tell them that it ain't law. But a child can figure that out, can't they? Because they're listed as artificial persons, i.e. their property, human capital. Negroes are corporations. They're not human beings. Now, but they are property of the corporations under the 14th Amendment. And the corporations are actually the holding companies. They're surety, holding, and transfer companies. And that goes for all of them, all of which I won't name to give them the respect because a lot of people work for them. But all these big corporations with the names starting like W and all the rest of them, they're actually security holding companies. They're just selling food and clothing and stuff like that as fronts. i.e. their plantations. And you're the capital. It's your estate that all of them is running on. But people get confused because they use different names, like birth certificates, marriage certificates, driver's license, and all these instruments, and these people think that these instruments are different. All of them are deeds of trust. And the U.S. corporation and its officers are acting as trustees of an estate. That's why they must take an oath on the Constitution. And they're pulled in check by Article 6. This is the reason why they never say republic. They always say democracy, because they're actually working for the Jesuits. That's the truth. That's why Woodrow Wilson in 1913 sold the government to the Jesuits directly and established the Federal Reserve and the Inquisition Revenue Services under the name Internal Revenue Services. It belongs to the Jesuits and is not a part of the United States Republic. It's a private foreign corporation that's registered in Guam, the Philippines, with its main headquarters offshore in Puerto Rico, under protectorate, and none of them are under republic order because they're private property. And they deal with the bookkeeping as transfer agents for the sureties, i.e. of the estates of the fallen Moors, and thus they have the account number. Whether they're using the QC number on the Social Security or birth certificate, etc., those same registries of all instruments or all so-called digits that come through any one of the persons held in servitude is registered, i.e., through the IRS. And that's the real deal. And that's why they're they're just opening up. They don't want to admit that that's what's going on all the time, so they're saying, well, they're giving the corporations the status of persons so they can contribute to campaigns, any amount that they want to, because the people know that this stuff is corrupt, and so they're trying to act like this stuff has just took place. It was always like that. But the people were listed as incompetent. And if they was thinking, they would recognize it already. But they so busy trying to be black, giving up their birthright, and this man daggone sure been stealing it and using them as human capital, and then they put Negro leaders out there to keep on pumping this black brand in order to declare them incompetent and Christian property. That's why we're economically strained. We got, in other words, even after all these many decades and all these centuries that we've been held to servitude, we're still the ninth richest nation of people on the earth. We just don't recognize our own nationality. Therefore, we are divided against our own house and have no control of our wealth, and therefore we are beggars. This is the reason why they only teach us religions that beg. And all the gospel songs, they're not uplifting, they're all begging songs. Isn't that the truth? Baby, please.
They wallowing, but I still want to get to something that I can actually put my hands on in terms of solution. Like, take for instance, you are a contractor, and that deals with the building of homes. And when we're talking about real estate, we're talking about something that's actually tangible. Granted, we know in the current state of it being, property of the banks or what have you, that it's not, it's not what we perceive it to be.
Let's finish your statement, and I'm going to give you some points as far as immediate remedy.
How would one go about getting their hands on pieces of property?
They're not going to get their hands on anything that you can't look at it that way. This is what you got to look at. Now, and I want you to look at what your question is, and it's certainly totally legitimate and certainly at the forefront, because the beggar people cannot fulfill the highest spirituality in themselves, can they?
No, they can't.
So we cannot sit around talking about how Afrocentrically spiritual we are, and when we're broke as hell and hungry and one foot on the curb, we're full of crap when we try to act like we're being successful. We're under heavy oppression. Now, the point of it is, this is why when we're talking and you see me every once in a while, I'll go back to what you call the trustee and trustor relationship.
Yes.
Because if the people don't understand that, there is no other remedy. Because they're in control of your estate. You see the point?
Yes.
And if you don't address your estate, whatever else you do, you're spinning wheels. And when I say you, I'm talking to me too.
Of course.
So you mean to say
if the people don't understand that the U.S. corporation is as a trustee, only it's what you call a wardship situation over the Moroccan Empire, then you cannot understand the politics, and you cannot get any cures. You'll only spin wheels and get frustrated, and this is what's problem. This is what's wrong with us, because we keep on trying things from an emotional argument, talking about racism and prejudice, and they don't like our color. The people don't even know that color people means artificial person. They think it's some Afrocentric identity. So if you can't fix their head, how can you fix the physical problem? When you got Negro leaders who know in law that colored person means artificial person, as distinguished from that which is real. And they tell our people that's Afrocentric, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And our people believe them, don't they? But yet you can take a child to a law dictionary and show them that it means artificial person. And these people won't give that back to Rome, will they? They refuse to render that back to Caesar, don't they? But they want the benefit of the estate.
They're holding on to that. They
want the benefit of the estate, though, don't they?
I damn sure do.
They're declared incompetent all over the world.
So that's why you have your proverbial $40 million slaves.
It's exactly
like what
right,
we just witnessed. Like what we just witnessed with the NBA lockout.
Exactly. To put them in their place.
Okay.
They look miserable.
Real talk.
They look miserable without a ball court to play on.
And
I mean, they really looked like they was in their peonage. They looked miserable. Like they didn't have no remedy. They couldn't put no funds up to do their own thing. They were strictly contracted slaves, and that's what the owners told them. Look, you can't even dribble the ball outside.
They start believing in those numbers, didn't they? They start believing in the numbers, and the numbers of bookkeeping. All they have to do is immediately go right to the bookkeeping and cut the value of their alleged currency in half. And the half of them will start losing their businesses and their houses. It can be done with a stroke of a pen.
Wow. Is that why they dissolved the union and went back in?
They better. Unless they want to claim the estate. Now, they can claim the estate and stop the bullshit. Excuse my expression, but not the language.
Right. Can we take this time, because we are at the 10:30 hour. I want to go to the phone lines. There are many, many hands in the call queue. I still am looking for our sister Ras Mariah Bey to call in. So hopefully she is one of the...
Please bring the first caller in first, Blue.
Oh yes, the brother that I promised that I would bring in, Brother Daoud.
Sir. Yeah.
Brother Daoud.
Okay. Yes, I believe that is caller from the 617. If I'm correct, let me check. 617-445. Caller, peace. 617, Brother Daoud, peace.
Is he still on?
Yeah, he's still on. His line is open. I'll come back to him. Caller from the 617. We will return to you shortly. All right? Let me go to caller from the 302. Okay, 302-287, caller. Peace.
Peace. Islam.
Islam and peace.
Islam, Moorish. Hey, listen, man, I'm calling from 302. I heard the brother Taj, he was speaking a lot about Delaware area. You know, it's some science in Delaware, Mose. It's some science in Delaware. I also heard the doctor or the brother talk about, you know, how they got us on that maritime law. Now, I have a question for Brother Taj. You know, if I could take this time to take a question real quick.
Of course.
All right.
Now, when we talk about these pirates, or we talk about the impersonating sheriff or sheriff, the policemen, the police officers. Now, you saying that they work under a maritime law, correct?
Maritime, admiralty, and then sometimes equity, but not under the Republic.
Okay, so that means like when they kidnap you and everything like that, they really working outside of the Republic, right?
Go ahead, finish up, and then I'm going to tell you. When they're kidnapping, what they're doing, they're stealing, or what they call a runaway wards. In other words, the people are looked at generally as Christian property. That must be understood, the position that they're taking. And they're looked at as chattel property. They're not looked at as human beings.
True.
Because they're looked at as stateless person. And in law, a stateless person is one who's called constitutionally incompetent and having psychosomatic problems. And therefore are confiscatable as property, no different than a child that has psycho problems running around the street.
So you're saying they think of us like as children?
That's what we're legally classified as incompetence. That's why they're listed as minorities, because they got the mentality of minors. And the people think it is Afrocentric numbers. It is a legal condition.
Yeah, people confuse minority. I'm sorry, Taj.
Yeah.
They confuse the term minority with saying that we're 12% of the population. They confuse it with numbers when it's actually a legal term which denotes mental capacity. It's saying that you are a minor, that you are a minority, the same way that children are minors. And a minor could be, you're a ward of the state, so you cannot make decisions on your own. You can't speak for yourself in court. It's so many things that a minor can't do. So when you accept the legal definition of a minority, what do you think is going to happen?
This is the reason why they have black leaders keep promoting it as if it's Afrocentric. And the people who don't study law think it's innocent, like they're doing some kind of favor, being sympathetic with our Afrocentricity. We're people of color and all that stuff. That means fake people, i.e. corporations to chattel property, 14th Amendment.
True. Now, like I was just saying again, living in the territory of Delaware, it's a lot of historical, references about how the Moors came through. And I know, Taj, you automatically come to Delaware. I know I just missed you, as a matter of fact, coming to Delaware. So I got up with the people and everything like that. I know the next time you coming, brother, so I ain't going to miss you this time. You're going to meet me. But I said all that to say this. In Delaware, we're looking at it as like, okay, when they going and they saying they working on the maritime law, okay, they working as admiralty or admiral, and that's the seas, correct? So they already operating as pirates. They're already operating as pirates. Now, speaking from one who claimed his nationality and everything like that, my question to you is, Taj, and of course the host, is how can one navigate or move through these treacherous seas? Because I got my nationality. I'm already under the courts and everything like that, and all that good stuff of accepting my free national name. But when I say who I am in the first place, well, that's a lie. That's fraudulent. That's not even truth. How can we, in a way, how can we find a way to navigate through these sharks in the waters?
All right. Can I answer that?
Yeah. How can we move?
All right. Now, this is the reason why they're upset with Obama when he signed Rights of Indigenous People. First of all correspondence, all writs or affidavits sent to them should also be courtesy copied to the High Court of Justice in The Hague, i.e., because the U.S. corporation turned over all their seats of government in 1933 to the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and as Senator Trapicon has said, because, you know, they threw him in jail and stuff, that the U.S. exists in name only. What you have is a Jesuit order operating through these corporations, pretending to be government, etc., when the government doesn't exist. And what they're doing is they're doing exactly what you say, piracy, and you already know the rule of operation is what they call also bottomry. And that's how they create these so-called straw estates and then assign themselves as trustees to the estate and then accuse the people of abandoning the estate and that they're left with the burden of managing the estate, and therefore they're claiming as ward keepers of the estate a foreclosure principle of abandonment. That's why all these foreclosures, once people start challenging them, that's why it shut the bank down when we put those papers out the year before last. Because the people are claiming their estate through reconveyance. And even though they're not honoring everything, what it's doing is telling the civilized world that the heirs are waking up, and it makes all those derivative instruments they have around the world begin to collapse. They become toxic paper. And so you got all these economies built on paper of an estate, and the papers are all dead paper. And so they have essentially what they call not money, but what they call money of account, which is a fraud because it's not money of account because they want to admit the truth. What it is currency bookkeeping on digital output of the batteries, which are considered the people because they're draining the people of their resources of the estate by estate powers having no money whatsoever, but are living off the residuals of an estate that is not theirs, i.e. the great Masonic secret controlling of the Great Seal of the Moorish inheritance of the North Gate of a Mexim, etc., etc., etc. And the world is saying the heirs are waking up and they're turning in all of their trustee bonds, etc. Thus, the U.S. corporation is going broke because they ain't got no money. They're operating off of our estate. And if the Moors just start declaring their nationality, this thing will collapse. However, they keep on trying to find a place of comfort in a system that is dead. And the effort should be made to wake our people up to claim their estate. All they need to do, because you already know and I know, that there's no deeds that are allodial. There is no such thing as they have no titles to give, and there's no ownership here. Because the heirs must be claimed, because everybody's claiming to be a surety holder. Well, they ain't no surety holders to an estate that's not theirs. This is the reason why the corporate U.S. issued laws over and over again that U.S. citizens cannot contest public laws. Did they issue that?
Mm-hmm. True.
Uh-huh. And this is why the middle-class Europeans, now that they want the republic back, that's why they're marching now, because they can't even contest. If they want to talk about sovereignty, then they go back to England, Ireland, France, wherever they came from, because that's where their sovereignty is, because they daggone sure ain't white people.
True.
And they're not American. So who's the real surety holder? The real surety holders are the heirs of the estate who have been kept deaf, dumb, and blind of who they really are by both Europeans and their so-called religious black leaders who've all been living off of our virtues. And everybody, daggone sure can be a what you call a surety holder of an estate that held in trust, can they?
No.
Can they?
No, they can't.
Nope.
So now, when this thing starts collapsing, which it's already doing, sooner or later, even though everybody keeps beating around the bush, the real heirs are going to be forced to be identified, aren't they?
Yep.
True.
Because what? Nations' economies are based on instruments that have been issued to them on promised wages, on taxation of people who've been working their own land under sharecropping and didn't know it. So without them having jobs, the fraud can't continue because that's what's been used to cover this thing up, hasn't it been?
Indeed.
It's true. It's true.
Well, guess what? I think the currency numbers will speak for themselves. And, of course, and the pain that goes with it. Would these people want to put on the curb?
It's been requested of me from the chat. They want me to ask you to tell them what Sendai is. This way they might understand what you're saying a little bit clearer.
And I'm going to back up, and this is why you see me very once in a while we get tempted to go into a lot of different venues of information, and you'll see me come back to basic things. If people don't understand that this is a trustee and heir relationship, or what you would call a trustee and trustor relationship, and that we, which are the true heirs of the estate, are the true creditors unacknowledged. Are we clear? The bankers are placed themselves as the creditors when they're really not. They've traded places with us by controlling our estate. Are we clear?
Yes, indeed. They showed you that.
What gives them the advantage is that they've been running things, not because they actually have any money. They have no money. They have control of an estate that is not theirs. And the people who don't know who they are. And so they're not making efforts to claim their estate. They're sitting around talking about civil rights, which makes them incompetent.
Trading places.
When all they need to do is start claiming their estate. They think they owe something. They think they got money. They think they need money. They ain't got money. They ain't been allowed to hold money.
Federal Reserve notes.
They're debt notes.
Fiat.
That's why I call fiat. Fiat is what? Authority claimed by authority of Rome, etc. Because they said so. Not because it has any value whatsoever. That's why they can regulate it by the pen. Why do you think they keep throwing the stock market up and down? These people think they got investment. Please. They ain't figured it out yet. In other words, if the Moors just start claiming their estate, already it throws the system into chaos. You can walk down the street, see an empty house, go change the lock, claim it. But you better be in your proper person. We don't tell people to do that because people can't defend that because they don't understand this thing. But guess what? Lawfully, that's exactly what they can do. The only weakness is that they're not organized because they're sitting around talking about how black they are. You see what the problem is?
Indeed.
And then they keep looking. The remedy is them, is running in their bloodstream. They think it's a belief system. See what the problem is?
Indeed. We have other callers in the call queue, though, so I want to say thank you to the caller.
All right, peace, Mose. Peace.
Peace, good brother.
Okay. Let's go to caller calling from the 347-433 caller. Peace.
Peace. Brother Polite.
Peace, brother. How's the family?
Young God. Everybody's good. You know we love you, Taj. I just called just to commend you on the great job you do, as well as the sisters there at that Wednesday class, raising the people's consciousness, contributing to them having a higher cognition of what's going on today. So that's all I call for, just to give you my kudos. You know our family loves you like crazy. And
we love you all too, man.
Yep.
And keep up the good work too, brother.
Thanks, man. I'm just calling just to attest that Taj is the real deal. He doesn't pacify the information. He go in hard. It comes from his heart. I feel that from him. A lot of times, a lot of us get this legal information, and we become more egotistical than we become beneficial to the people. So, he just give it up. He don't try to bang you in the head for no $1,000 to get stuff done. If he know the information, he shares it. So I just want to attest to that and just commend you for what you're doing. And I'm listening and I'm learning as well. So, just thank you for everything you're doing for the people. That's it.
Right, brother. Just up do something good for ourselves, our children, mainly our children, because we gotta give them something. We can't keep on just looking out for ourselves at the moment and sacrificing our babies, because they're going to inherit whatever we leave. So we better start acting like we know. I say, let us eat oodles or noodles right now, so our children can walk back to their palaces.
That's right.
as I said earlier in the chat, you know, when the brother Taj was building on our own worth, our national worth, and someone mentioned national treasure, I mentioned it in your lecture when you pointed out fidelity, you know, they could go to fidelity to find out the nature of their bond and the fact that Disney owns the majority of those bonds. And, you know, we also pointed out the fact that Disney also made the movie National Treasure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And Taj often speaks about national treasure dealing with, you know what I'm saying, our hidden birthright right in Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? So that connection is right in front of your face, dealing with 55 Water Street, deals with 55 Trinity Place, because they went right underneath the church and they found the national treasure right there. You know what I'm saying? But then part two is dealing with Mount Rushmore or what have you, dealing with your Olmec legacy. So your indigenous inheritance leading back on this land for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. It's in the blood.
Yeah. And they said, just like you said, Brother Polite, they said what? Rushmore. They didn't even hide it.
You know? So I want to say thank you to Brother Polite. He will be joining us on the program next week, I believe. I'm looking forward to that. All right?
I'd like to thank y'all, too. You know, you and your brother get your kudos as well. You already know I can't stress it enough. It needs to be said. You're doing a dynamic job, and I know personally y'all could be doing something else or getting distracted with the antics of the Roman antics of hip-hop. But instead, you do this, and it's not appreciated in the capacity that it should be in. Though y'all doing good, so you're not like y'all dying, but it's not appreciated in the capacity that it should be embraced and on account to the low cognition of our people. But for what it's worth, y'all I commend y'all as well for the job that y'all do, because I know y'all family men, y'all got lives of your own, and y'all don't use your personal lives as an excuse for why you can't contribute to the consciousness of your community. So it needs to be said. It shouldn't go unsaid. So, you know, kudos to you for being conscious enough, wise enough, and humble enough to have other people who also know participate in your forum. So, you know, thank y'all too, man.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot.
Peace.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.
Kudos to the brother too, man. He's on time.
Yes, he is.
Love that brother and his energy. Yeah. Let's go to the next caller in the call queue. We have a caller calling from the 410-952 area. 952 caller. Peace.
Peace. I appreciate the information. Peace. Y'all hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
All right. I appreciate the information y'all bringing through. I have a question. I haven't claimed my status, and I'm getting some money out of an annuity, and I want to know if there's anything I can do to get the IRS out of my pocket when I get this money.
All right, you're not going to get any money. What you will get is what you call sharecropping credits. Sharecropping credits of currency. That's under the jurisdiction of the Jesuits, unless you're national and you make a national claim. That's the only way you get them out your pocket, is your status.
Okay.
Because remember, in law, so you write this down so that you don't forget. In social interchange between the human family, and particularly when there's issues of rights and or properties, etc., the first issue at law is status. Status is equated in law with inheritances, etc., or any property, which is an extension of the natural person, is referred to as estate. That is the issue of all interest and or properties, etc., land, etc., that one would call inheritances. Due to the fact that the U.S. corporation is a private, foreign, religious, for-profit organization and corporate entity, as distinguished from the land, lordship tenure, military tenure, posture, de facto over the Moorish Empire, which is demonstrated in the letter from George Washington to the Sultan of Morocco, etc. When the adoption of the Constitution, also with the Ordinance of 1787 and the ratification of the Constitution 1787, 88, and then with the transfer of Master Mason George Washington as the first president for the Republic, but not the first president for the United States. If you understand, that was distinguished with the Republic, i.e., under John Hanson. And so that must be understood in order for us to understand the politics also. So when you look and understand the foundation of the operations of the United States, you can pretty much kind of understand how Europeans think, how the government operates, and keep this in mind. It's probably one of the things, like the subtle things that all of us as Moorish Americans should be cognizant of. You know how they say, put yourself in someone else's moccasins? And understanding what the European is, how he's really operating, you have to understand that they're all reminded to think from this perspective, though they don't discuss it. So you think from this perspective, too, also while you're looking at all of the other instruments and all of the other activities. So the first issue is status. And upon that status, then you claim the estate. Now, as far as the IRS being it's a collection arm claiming you as Christian property, they're claiming automatic, what you call jurisdictional powers over the estate. Now, if you're dealing with an issue of inheritance and you're forced into their jurisdiction, I suggest that you look at what they call Form 1099, etc., and what you're actually doing at that time, again, is starting to take control of the estate. So look into that.
Okay, appreciate it. In terms of status, before the show ends, if y'all could drop some information in regards to who could assist in that in the ATL area.
Well, in the ATL area, actually, let's put it this way. As Brother Polite said, relative to the brother Phil, his brother, etc., Red Pill and Blue Pill, about the work that they're doing, you're pretty much going to get your remedy from active Moors, because unfortunately, some of the people who are supposed to be doing this job have been infiltrated by COINTELPRO, and they will tell the people that this Moorish movement has nothing to do with civics, which is actually the science of government. Therefore, the people that should be teaching the people how to protect their estate have actually been working for J. Edgar Hoover and just telling people this is a religious organization. Therefore, the skills and the fundamental principles of law that should have been taught to all Moorish Americans, ETC, have been going by the wayside. So in ATL or any other state where there's any Moorish institution, actually Moorish institutions should be operating under what is known as a consular principle by international law, so that the people can take their places amongst the affairs of men, thereby challenging the jurisdiction of any estate keeper on a nation that is essentially by law expressing what you would call right of self-determination in accord with international law. Therefore, I suggest that you listen to stations like this and learn the things that you need to learn, because the persons who should be doing that for you and with you in that area may or may not be operating properly. So I would not honorably say to you, go to this place or go to that place, because I already know about the compromise and about the COINTELPRO operatives that are operating around the country, because I talk to people inside this country and I talk to people outside this country. And the general concept is that many of the people that should be telling you some of these things have already sold out. So the concept is that you're not going to get remedy in your own community necessarily unless you have active Moors, because the others, by agreement and by payoff, are passive.
And
I suggest that I'm going to give you some keys. I suggest that you study trust law, at least the fundamentals, and the obligation of all trustees to answer to the trustor upon command and request. That's for starters.
Okay.
For two, if somebody is a trustee over your over any interest that is yours logically, they own nothing. Am I correct?
True indeed.
Now do you understand that when people start challenging mortgages, why the banks have problems? Because they don't own the properties. They never did. They own nothing. They've been controlling the trust, but they're not going to say that, are they? They keep acting like they own, don't they? But they act like they own as long as the estate, the people or the heirs of the estate don't understand this relationship. And you've got to keep in mind that the IRS is really the Inquisition Revenue Services under the Inquisitor General, which is the other hat that Timothy Geithner wears. Skull and bones, are we clear?
Okay.
The United States Treasury does not exist lawfully, are we clear?
Corporation.
The United States Treasury Department does not exist. It's a front.
Okay.
Timothy Geithner is Inquisitor General.
Of the Jesuits.
Exactly. This is why when people are coming from different angles, or how you might say different schools of thoughts trying to seek remedy, ultimately the only claim can be heirs of the estate. That's your only ultimate remedy.
And for the family...
I'm going to give you something to think about. When things were starting to go into receivership, etc., as these instruments around the world became toxic paper, did you notice that President Bush initiated what they call a stimulant, didn't he?
Right.
And then it was followed up by President Barack Obama with another stimulus package. Am I correct?
Right.
From an international and political perspective, in actuality, the effect of the stimulus in law, legitimate law, would be nationalization, wouldn't it?
Okay.
It was not called nationalization because they're not the nationals. They're not heirs to the estate. Do you see how, if you understand law, how you can look at language and actually uncover the fraud?
Oh, okay. That's why they began nationalizing all of the banks. They nationalized the car dealer, the GM, Ford, and everything. That's what took place in the stimulus, but they couldn't call it a nationalization project because, all right.
But they couldn't call it that because they're not the nationals. They're the carekeepers. They're the keepers of the Northgate. They're not the heirs. They don't have the power to nationalize. But they got the same effect by the stimulus. You see the point?
Yes, sir.
So what do the heirs need to do? They need to nationalize their property, don't they?
Yep.
See the point?
Wow.
See where I'm at?
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Y'all keep up the good work, bro.
For the good brother in the ATL area, just listen to a few more shows, and we will be giving you information about the weekly classes that are coming back down here, where we'll actually be broadcasting via satellite some of the classes that the brother Taj Tarik and Ras Mariah Bey are doing live in Harlem, so we can receive this information, direct.
Word. All right, I look forward to it.
Indeed,
all right,
brother.
All right,
peace and greetings to the family in ATL.
Indeed. Okay, we are going to take another caller as we prepare for the 11:11 meditation. Let me go. I have a Skype caller calling from the 111 area code. 111 caller. Peace.
Islam.
Peace.
Peace.
Islam. Peace to the twins, Blue Pill, Red Pill, Islam. Give honors to Brother Taj Tarik. His brother, Brother Sheikh Kareem Yusuf Kornegay Bey.
Peace.
Islam. I'm from the Moorish Temple of our National Movement, Incorporated number 13, the Moorish American National Republic. And, Islam. Brother Taj Tarik, he said he said something very vital that a lot of Moors got to pay attention to when he mentioned the 13th Amendment is 20 sections, because that's a missing piece that a lot of Moors don't build on that, that Taj Tarik just built upon. Because when you read Act 6 of the Divine Constitution, the Prophet alludes to 1865 that we were set free. So those are dealing with the proclamations of Abraham Lincoln, with the 13 of the 20 sections. And when we could have been actually compensated, colonized, and naturalized, and we could have been given over 22 states between the Allegheny and Rocky Mountains. So this is a process that, a lot of Moors is missing, that, the Amir Taj Tarik Bey just touched upon, that we got to, pay attention to when it comes to that science dealing with those proclamations, because December 13, 1865, that was made permanent part of the Constitution, is the law of the land.
Right.
So the Prophet said that the 14th, 15th Amendment is not applicable, but he didn't mention the 13th Amendment because the 13th Amendment 20 section was is the law of the land, and we're supposed to be dealing with that science because we're dealing with the emancipation and compensation. We're supposed to be compensated for people for us being held as slaves and things of that nature. And the Amir Taj Tarik Bey also mentioned about the trust and us being the trustees, because the Prophet Nubuju Ali is the sovereign of the land. And when you look at the certified copy of his authority, you'll see that he has an upside down R on top of that authority. When you look up the word R in Blackstone Dictionary, it lets you know that that's a signature of a royal person. Because when the Prophet recorded it in Cook County, Illinois, under Herzegovina statutes, he took the land over. As the land is his. So when we became his adopted children under the Vast Express Trust, was the Most High Temple, we become the beneficiary to this Vast Express Trust.
Yeah.
So we got to understand that, we got to go through this process that was set for us to be set free under Act 6 under the Divine Constitution, which is compensation, naturalization, and colonization. So those are the powers of the freedom that have freed us. So we got to do the sign to that, and realize that, the Prophet set this all up already, and we got to come under his authority because he's the sovereign ruler of the land, and we just, we his adopted children. So us Moors, we got to come to that science and, and proclaim our nationality. There was a brother earlier on the line, he was talking about, how he could get his status corrected. We particularly in the Muslim terms of our national movement, North America, number 13, we have what we call an affidavit of live birth that we send about the statistics that you get the birth certificate with your correct status and your title elevated, to your name. So that's what we're dealing with. But the Amir Taj Tarik Bey, he's doing a great job. I used to go to his class, I learned a lot from the brother, and we got to get this together more, and we got to move as a government. And with that, I say peace.
Yes, peace, brother. And that's spot on. And see, and the very principles that the Grand Sheik was speaking, that's what the temples were actually for. The temples are actually regencies. But and I know, across the country, they have not been represented or representing them for what they really are. And this is why we're so behind the eight ball. And you have what you say, some of the Grand Sheiks have been doing the work that's supposed to be done all across this country, because we shouldn't be suffering like this.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the keys were brought and given to them, and they haven't been teaching the people. They've been trying to play rulership guys. You get the point? We're fighting for power. And the birthright belongs to the people. Joali said, come all ye Asiatics of North America. And he said, just clump members.
Yeah,
thanks,
definitely. No doubt. Peace.
Peace. Okay, family, we ask you to prepare yourself for the 11:11 meditation. We're going to be taking a short break, and we will come back and answer the rest of the callers in the call queue. We ask this particular time that you find yourself in a dark place, turn the lights off in your residence. You can turn the light off on your computer without turning your computer off. Find yourself seated with your back straight, preferably on a chair, feet to the floor, with your palms on your knees facing upwards, index finger
and thumb touching the tip of your tongue, touching the roof of your mouth with your mouth closed, eyes closed, and we are going to be meditating to the sounds of Om Mani Padme Om. Family, we ask that you concentrate, or pretty much this meditation will be focused on bringing clarity to the topics for which we are speaking of tonight. I'm saying so things may become more clearer. So the emphasis will be clarity. Om Mani Padme Om is a meditation and encompasses all that Buddha stood for, particularly dealing with compassion. Okay? We will be back shortly. Peace. Peace to the family.
Peace.
Yeah. Pardon self for the family. I don't Tune and Fork is out of commission tonight. So pardon self. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully it was a transcendental experience for yourself just as it was for me. Brother Red, you back with us? You on Pluto?
In the building. I'm here.
Okay.
Before we go to the callers, I want to ask the brother Taj, did you have the pleasure of making acquaintance with our sister Myra L?
Oh, yes.
Indeed. I'm sure that you have heard of her untimely demise?
Yes, and my position is that they set that up. By blocking her from using the shores to get treatment that the Jesuits did not sanction through the medical temples of doom.
Well, not only that, but it was a deliberate. It was deliberate from what we're being told and from the information that has been sent to us. It was a medical hit. You know what I'm saying? They didn't stop just by blocking her from traveling, across seas. She was systematically murdered in the North Shore Hospital by, doctors or agents posing as doctors or what have you. Her sister has requested to come forth on this program to lay the facts out. She said that her sister would want it that way, that she wants the world to know that she was murdered and she did not succumb to, the cancer. You know what I'm saying? She was straight up murdered.
Mm-hmm. I felt that even when no one told me anything. I felt, so they told me, I figured it out.
Yes, indeed.
That's the reason why we don't go to those temples of doom.
Yes, I'll be forwarding you these documents as well, you know what I'm saying, because the sister was speaking about, possibly seeking some sort of remedy. And, again, yes, there's reinforcement.
High Court of Justice, International Court of Justice, human rights violation and genocide. It's already set in order.
Indeed. And like I was saying, that speaks to the importance of, why the family, as a family, has to get it together, because there are things that will be coming down the pipes that we will need to have in place to deal with funerary rights, to deal with medical treatments, for those that are amongst our flock, that we just can't be sending into these butcher shops that already have the edicts from Rome to say when this person comes through the door, make sure that they don't leave. So, these things have to be put in place.
That's their rules. And the overall rule is, this information is what? Next year, it'll be 100 years that it's been here. They said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. A lot of it's on us. We have to get away from when, calamities meet us or when crisis comes, to then go through the ritual of activity. It must become an everyday part of our lives. Thus, the protocols would be in place, wouldn't they?
Absolutely.
Yes. It's not that the information all you need to do is talk to many of the brothers and sisters in our community. We certainly have the scientists, because the mothers are bringing them.
Yes, we do. It's just about the gelling. It's about, like the brother was speaking, of the unified front.
Like Brother Polite said, the egos have to be removed, and the cause has to be in front at all times.
See. Okay, I want to go to the next call in the call queue, because we do have a lot of people in the building, and I want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So we're going to go to caller from the 916-247, 916 caller. Peace.
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 Peace, good brother.
All right, what's good? I like to say peace to the pills, and you know, of course, Islam to Taj Tarik as well.
Peace, good brother.
All right. I just had a couple questions for you. My first question is, did you get a chance to read the Free Sundry Moors Act of 2012, and what is your opinion on it?
The 2012 Sundry Free Moors Act? No, I have not read it directly.
Okay.
Give me a synopsis. How long is it, and give me a synopsis. Is it in the same nature as the original?
Yes, indeed. But basically with more solutions and salvation for the Moors. I mean, if it's 56 pages, if you get a chance, go over it, and I mean, it's pretty much self-explanatory. All the solutions are there, and it's definitely something that you know, the Moors need to get behind, and, you know, and support. Yeah. Definitely. So if you get a chance, check it out.
Will do, brother. I'll be right on top of it.
Okay. And the second question was, and also, indeed, I didn't mean to be rude or anything. My name is Amaray Hotep Ali. I am the Amir from Marrakesh Emirate of Khalifa out here where Sacramento, California does business.
Islam, good brother.
Yeah, Islam. And my last question is, I heard you talk about, in no disrespect to Noble Drew Ali in any way, form, or shape, to all the, you know, the supporters out there. My question is, I heard you talk about, you know, taking over the land, you know, with express trust and whatnot. But, you know, my question is, you know,
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay. My bad for the not hearing it correctly. But the question that I had was, since the treaties are the supreme law of the land, shouldn't we, you know, basically utilize that, you know, to basically to take the land over, basically, pretty much?
That's why I say all the people need to do is nationalize their property. They could actually walk down the street, empty buildings, and claim them. I just don't suggest that they do it until they're conscious. And this is why you see me over the years spending so much effort trying to get them fundamentally concept correct in both their allegiance to the cause and the movement and the politics of the world, so that they don't go out and do things and then, when challenged, don't know how to defend it. That is my position. However, if the Grand Chiefs would do their jobs, just like the lay person, the work that you're doing, etc., because that's the fundamental principles. That means this information has been amongst the Moors for 100 years. There's no reason why we should be going through these dynamics, trying to get these concepts across to people that should have been taught to them 90 years ago, which indicates what the sellout is all about. And also, you know, even why they murdered Il-Haj, you know, that the people know as Malcolm when he found out, and they couldn't buy him off. And so that means those amongst the Moorish Americans who've had this information all this time, it's their duty and responsibility to get this to the common people. And if they get this information to the common people will bring their own cure, won't they?
Yeah.
By just simply claiming their estate. That's why Drew Ali said, if you don't do anything else, declare your nationality. Why? Because when you look at this thing, since it's all held in trust, even though the trust is unrevealed, etc., that means that the receivership that they're maintaining of power of attorney dies automatically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that means any instruments that they have out there, because they're not dealing with money, they're dealing with currency bookkeeping, or monies of account that they call. So that means all those instruments upon which they're funding off of our state and getting credits from other nations, whether it's China, India, Japan, etc., is all dead paper. And if they can't sustain the control of the estate, they can't sustain their military powers over us, can they?
Yeah.
Because one must support the other, including their colorable courts and their colored leader guys. You see the point? That's why I tell people over and over again, declare your nationality. Meanwhile, study so that you can defend the state. There's no reason for our people to be poor.
Yeah, and if you can, for the people, because some people might be confused, when you say, like, our vast estate, some people might not know. Could you clarify that?
This is the reason why you see redundantly Just like, for instance, people are talking about surety holders, et cetera, being a secured party, et cetera. And then if you question them, they don't even know the parameters of the estate. You see the problem? For starters, and that's the geographical parameters. For starters. Then they don't understand the fundamental politics of the world and the politics of the supreme law of the land, i.e., which is the treaty. So if the Europeans under the war powers, under Skull and Bones member Theodore Roosevelt, when they called the bank holiday for the Jesuits in order to send gold over there and issued the Gold Act and the Trading Against the Enemies Act, that didn't preclude the fact that the treaty is the supreme law of the land, just as you spoke. Am I correct?
Indeed.
So if they don't declaim their Moorish nationality, they can't claim the common law because the common law is based in common ancient culture and ancient customs. Therefore, the common law wouldn't by constitution venue, even apply to them their own law, would it?
No, sir.
So if they declare their nationality, the state is already there. There's nothing else that they got to do but be themselves, mustn't they?
Indeed.
Because the extension of the estate automatically goes with that status, doesn't it?
Yep.
And while everybody else is claiming to be surety holders, whether it's the bankers, the U.S. corporation, these senators, and all these other corrupt corporations, etc., they're only moving around paper that's clearly a fraud to the rest of the world because the heirs are demonstrating that they're not in amnesia anymore, just simply by them acting conscious and starting being active and not passive. So if they're talking about properties, then they must understand at least the parameters of the estate, mustn't they?
Indeed.
And therefore, they must know the geographical parameters of the state super de vere, etc., of the Great Survey, which is demonstrated in brief in chapter 47. That's why Drew Ali put it in the Quran.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure the people know that. So when they start talking about ownership and property in the states, they better know what they're talking about because this man ain't playing. He's liquidating. And so we have to be careful. In other words, we don't want to divide against each other, but we can't allow these dirty Moors to keep on screwing these people and trying to sell them a birthright that already belongs to them and getting away with that fraud. And we got to make sure that people have information so they'll know on their own. So they recognize Drew Ali didn't come here to make them followers of anything. He came to restore them to their rightful places in the affairs of men. And therefore, they must understand that when they're dealing with these corporations, and particularly these magi who call themselves magi straights, because they got affairs in secret. And they already know what their state is. So therefore, the heirs must know what their state is because it ain't based in belief. It's based in geographical facts. And therefore, they must know the history. They must know the Treaty of Verona. They must know how the estate was transferred, how it's maintained. Therefore, they must know trust law, mustn't they?
Indeed.
And they must know that the U.S. corporation is a private, foreign, religious corporation with a 501c3 registered in Delaware and not the land, distinguished from the land. Mustn't they? Must already know that, mustn't they?
Indeed.
All right. Now, do they need some trust or are they themselves the living trust?
What was that?
Do they need to know about some express trust, not that that's not of interest, or are they themselves the living trust?
They themselves are the living trust.
There you go. And it becomes active when they become conscious. And as long as they demonstrate unconsciousness, they are listed all over the world as incompetent, aren't they?
Indeed.
And an heir who's incompetent to an estate cannot have what? Legal control of their estate, can they?
Yes.
So whether they produce a paper or not is less important than the fact that they become conscious and that they can express by what? Their double-edged sword, which is their tongue. Confessing their own.
Indeed.
And I agree with you. Enforce the supreme law of the land, i.e. the treaty, because there certainly is a treaty because all debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of that Constitution shall be binding against the United States under that Constitution as under the Confederation. And all treaties which shall be made under in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land, just as you spoke. Am I correct?
Indeed.
Thus, being Moorish Americans, our obligation in international and national laws to enforce that treaty, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And if under the war powers they suspended the Constitution, that daggone sure didn't suspend the treaty, because it's perpetuity, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if they call themselves black, can that law protect them? No, can it?
Not at all.
There you go. Just what you said. And I'm with you.
Honors for that. Yeah, no doubt. I appreciate your, patience with me and answering my questions and everything. And like I said, honors to KTL. And I like to tell the listeners, then go to sultanate.murkush.com. To check out more information on what we got going on too as well. And again, honors Taj, KTL, the Pills. Peace.
Peace.
Honors, brother.
Salute to you.
Peace, brother.
Salute to the brothers of Moorish. Indeed, brother. Peace.
Yeah. For the family, please, whatever you do, please go over there and check out the act that these brothers have put together. It's monumental in its scope, you know what I'm saying, and it's definitely a remedy.
Right on. Love it.
Okay, can we go to caller calling from the 407 area code 284-284-47. Peace.
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 Peace to the gods. I just want to make some few comments. I got a couple questions. From my perspective, there were several different classes of Moors, different people who were classified as Moors throughout history. You had your Berber Moors, your Arab Moors. I think you had the Bukhari, the Andalese Moors. Yeah, so it's kind of like when you, and from the historical aspect, it's kind of like when you look at it, it's kind of like anybody could have been a Moor. You know what I'm saying? Like it was white Moors. Yeah, you know what I mean? You had anybody could have been a Moor at certain points in history. Is that correct?
You got to understand what you're saying. When you're talking tribes, is the tribe the bloodline? Is Moor the bloodline?
Well, from what I'm speaking on right now, I'm just speaking on physical appearance as far as skin color.
Appearances does not make the bloodline.
So were there white Moors?
Yes, white is a status, not a complexion.
Were there complexion white Moors?
There's no such thing until slave codes were initiated. White and black are statuses. They're political statuses.
Well, just based on skin complexion, what you see as the Caucasian,
you have what you're talking about.
Looking Moors?
If you're talking skin hue, you have Moors of different complexions, including albinos. And in law and in the sociology, Moor and African, Asiatic African, were used synonymously until contemporary times.
So there were Caucasian Moors as far as complexion is?
No, Caucasian, yeah, this is why you have many of what they call themselves black nobility in the European families. That's why you have what you call the Moorish coat of arms in many of your European families, darker than you and me.
So is that a yes or no?
That's a yes.
So Moor is synonymous. Any person on the planet could be a Moor. Any living being on the planet.
Don't European anthropologists keep telling everybody that everybody from the human family is derived from Africa or African blood? The difference that you have, what you would call your pale, you have some pale that comes from albino, and then you have some that came from the hybriding that took place in the Pyramid of the Sun technology in Negro Pedras which is called in Old Mexum, what they call Olmec, i.e. the hybrid in Patagonia, i.e. what you now call the red man, or what is known as Roman, i.e. the hybrid that you call today the European, and he still has Moorish blood.
All right. I don't want to stick on that too much, but
well,
that was one of my questions.
I'm just telling you what you're referencing. I'm telling you scientifically what you're referencing.
So anybody on the planet could be a Moor, just basically, right? Anybody.
There ain't nobody on this planet that didn't come through us. We're the mothers and fathers of civilization of the human family, period.
Okay, but I mean from a nationality point of view, because when I hear nationality, kind of like people black as far as nationality, as if there weren't white Moors as far as complexion.
You're talking direct bloodline. And you're talking about the first order of heirs by primogeniture are the ones who were overthrown, the sovereigns who have been branded Negro, black, and colored in the Western Hemisphere. That's how you know who the firstborn are, because that's who the target was under Pope Innocent.
Okay, well, based on that, so the initial Moors, so are you saying the original people of the planet were Moors, or was that a later thing that came out after, several dynasties or several, generations of humanity had occurred? Was more an original thing that people was doing on the planet, or was that a later thing that, because from when I study history, it's kind of hard for me to pinpoint certain things on Moor, because I see that it states that a lot of the people who were called Moors didn't consider themselves Moors. They weren't like, we are Moors.
See,
but the people who were writing about were saying that they were Moors.
And I understand where you're coming from, but you must understand, and we must understand, what people consider themselves politically has more to do with political jurisdictions, just like you see nations today. Nation, those who know real anthropology on the planet know that nations in the plural sense is a fiction. However, it is a political reality, isn't it?
Yeah, true indeed.
All right, which is back to what you're talking about, meaning that anybody that does a bloodline research of the beings on the planet called human, they'll all trace back to the Asiatic Moabite woman.
When you say Asiatic, do you mean the continent Asia, or do you mean like
you got to remember that all the land at one time was called Asia.
The whole Earth was called Asia.
All the land mass on the planet called Earth at one time was called Asia. They were given different district names. Minor, etc. They were all called Asia.
But what can you give me some dates on that?
You're talking about thousands of years. In other words, like the ancient is Asia, modern Africa, contemporary, particularly the majority, then you would call the master land America.
So is Asia an English term? What kind of term is the term Asia?
Asia is of Asiatic African descent.
I mean, it's a language like what language belongs to Asia?
English is actually Germanic, which is derived actually etymologically from ancient Sanskrit, which is still Asiatic African languages. In other words, European, what you call English, really don't belong to Europe. Exactly, Hebrew and Latin mixed.
Paula, right. I want to say
because there was another Moor who tried to tell me that Moor came from Egypt, M-A-U-R, and I know you had M-A-U-R-Y-E-N, Mauryan. Egypt was a Moabite nation.
Moor comes from Moor Luakani, the last high priest of the ancient Moabite nation, and the last high priest of the script that is translated and transliterated into the Septuagint, which is later transliterated into what you call today the Bible, and is actually in old ancient Central Africa, which is old ancient Amexem, which is also called in short by anthropologists Old Mek, i.e., which is actually the Yucatan.
Yes.
caller, I want to say thank you, but we do have a lot of callers in the call queue.
You cut my wisdom. That's cool, though, man.
I appreciate this, Bill. You know what I'm saying?
No, because I really didn't want to go into all that. I just wanted to ask like the simple question, but I couldn't get like a straightforward answer. So because I really had another question I wanted to ask based on the I feel you, but I do have to be fair to all of the callers in the call queue. And peace.
15 more hands up.
Peace.
Right, thank you. Peace. Peace. All right.
Peace.
Peace. Yes.
Peace, brother.
Yes, indeed. I want to go another caller. Caller calling from the 404. That's 404-857 caller. Peace.
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 Ms. Michael. But man, it's just so much information to take in when it comes to this. I'm relatively new to this understanding. You know, I don't brush by it from time to time, but just really getting it, I would say that I'm relatively new to it. But I got like two questions I really want to ask. Like, I guess at this point in time, I might have missed it. Like, what is the significance? Like, what, you know, because I really don't want to start, you know, drawing people into this until I actually do it myself. Because a lot of people don't want to believe it until you actually do it yourself. What is, like, the real significance and why people need to really take interest in this at this particular time?
Complete the last part of your question very clearly. The last part.
Like, why do people, like, why is this critical, like, right now at this time that we're living in, for us to basically claim our status? I got another question I want to ask, too.
All right. Now, let's make it very clear. And this is redundant. Now, notice that what I'm saying to you right now, this is redundant.
Okay.
What's critical is that the world is changing. You're coming into a new era of time. The European, the real politics of the world, particularly the hemisphere, the Western Hemisphere, is based on the Treaty of Verona. The fact that the people have not been taught and are unaware of it doesn't change the fact that it's of vital interest to the nations of the earth to address this thing in spite of the fact that the people are unaware. Because the instruments that they've built their economies on are built on the Moorish estate. Even though that's been hidden information, it's still the political fact. The fact that the heirs have not been aware of it doesn't change the vitalness of it. Meanwhile, i.e. the Romans who have been operating in the Western Hemisphere are trying to liquidate because they can't sustain this thing because it ain't their stuff. And they've got all these instruments around the world all built on a fraud, including the monetary system, including their laws, including the religion, and it's imploding, it's collapsing. Therefore, the heirs of the state is the only ones that don't know the games that's being played because they're busy playing idol god worship that they adopted from Rome, accusing their own ancient forefathers of creating this idol god worship stuff that actually didn't exist in the ancient world. We dealt with the universe. We dealt with cosmos. We dealt with the Eloah of the 7 ruling planets, which is the center of true religion. But yet the rulers have kept it for their selfish selves and given people idol god worship, and the heirs of the estate are still asleep playing idol god worship while the world is collapsing around them. Therefore, it's vital for them to claim their estate because it's being liquidated while they're sitting around sleeping trying to find something to believe in. And the world ain't waiting on them. They're going to be made fodder. Therefore, it's vital for them to be on key on the changing of the guard.
Okay. I got you. I want to, because I don't want, I know you're gonna be with me, bro.
I'm just telling you why it's vital.
Definitely. I'm with you. I definitely got you. I just wanted to get that out. So are you saying that, and I don't want to sound fearful and all that nonsense.
Go ahead, Tell me what you think. Shape us on your mind. Don't be around.
Right. I got you. So we don't have to really worry about, because really, at the end of the day, it's kind of like a game to a degree. Because like you said, they're going to have to really respect it once we come into this understanding. We don't really have to really worry about, because with all this military power and all this stuff, like you don't have to really worry about that because at the end of the day, like you say, this is about nations of men. And once we really get into our, our understanding and claim back our right, they have to really respected, right? Versus, trying to, go to military war and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Trying to hold us down.
This. Now look like this, and this is why they've been maintaining the military above all other institutions, because that's the only way they've been able to maintain the fraud. But what they cannot do, they can't suppress every nation on the earth, can they?
No.
Now, what is the problem that they're having right now, even with their so-called allies, which would include Germany, France, etc., is that little by little, the nations of the earth are turning against them, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and pretty soon they're not going to do business with them no more, are they?
No. Let me introduce.
And they certainly cannot. They can't fight the world, can they? Not that they're not trying. Not that they're not trying.
So let me ask you a question, Tarik. Is it? But do you still think it's like a cahoot? No, like I thought all these nations are kind of behind the scenes, kind of together. Like United States.
That's why they're backing off of Babylon, because they see the fall coming. Why do you think Europe created the euro? They knew this was coming. Why do you think they're having meetings all over the world with Russia, China, and European nations trying to come to the solution of the world economy by disavowing the dollar as the world currency, as I speak?
Yeah, brother. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here, yeah.
That's why it's important, like the brother Taj says, to actually study the Treaty of Verona, study the Inquisition, study how these countries, how these people came together under that banner of Christendom and been moving with that ever since. But then at the same time, study World War I, study World War II, like study their history that they've always gone to war with each other. Don't fall for the okie doke. When they came over here to the Americas and stole the land and agreed to go under that colorable term of white, you know what I'm saying? When they agreed to come under to this land and come under the those terms of Democratic and Republican and whatnot, those were just that was just convenient for that time being. But when you study them a few years before that, they were all going to war with each other. The French was going to war with Spain. Yeah. Spain was going to war with the British. The British were going to war with the Dutch. So they've never been at peace with each other. Don't fall for that. The only reason that they're able to maintain any kind of peace amongst themselves is because those that would truly challenge them are either fighting for them or dead asleep. So at the same time, they basically have been working together over the past few hundred of years to maintain that and to reap the benefits off of, like the brother Taj is saying, the ones who hold the estates sleeping, you know what I'm saying, falling asleep. So they've been able to maintain and move that money around, and that all business have been good and whatnot. But now that we're waking up, you see that they're cutting their losses, and these European nations are basically economically they're falling apart and they're bailing out.
Exactly. Why? Because they bought into the fraud. They bought into the fraud, and this is why you see the corporations under the U.S. are constantly moving their assets offshore, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
the other thing that people need to look at in modern times, which is an extension of the Treaty of Verona, is the Berlin Conference of 1884-85. And this is where the Christian nations met again, dividing up the Moorish estate.
This time in Africa.
The controversies between them relative to protectorates, etc. And as another example, to look, like the rich, we've been telling people about driver's license frauds for years, and then you've seen some of the sellout grantees criticizing us and other people who didn't understand this thing. Well, I'm just going to read a snippet of a case of Mr. Clapp's. It's a filing that caused Judge Manning's rambling recusal statement, and that case is Randall May in Class versus North Carolina, case number 10, DOT 7047, now known as 11 CVS 1559. And I'll just read 3 paragraphs to show you that they're on the run. and this is collusion, all right? North Carolina police departments all over the state of North Carolina have been warned, and North Carolina departments have warned their officers to put their personal property, their houses, their land, their cars, and all their other assets in someone else's name, because they may now be subject to lawsuits from the people of North Carolina. And this warning is issued in response to the recent ruling that upheld that the local police departments of North Carolina are classified as private entities and are not connected to the state of North Carolina. Judicial Review Judge Paul C. Ridgway, Wake County General Court of Justice, Superior Court Division, upheld a lower court ruling that most public officials and agencies are private entities. Are we clear?
Yes,
are we clear?
Definitely.
And guess what? That runs across the board. Why? Because the states are enclaves of the United States and are not state republics, i.e., they're a fraud. And now that people are waking up, they're starting to ask for their surety bonds, aren't they? And now they hear what? The police officers will now also have to fund their own surety bonds. And Judge Ridgway's September the 15th, 2011 ruling causes a conflict in the public's perception of basic government legitimacy, because Judge Howard E. Banning, Jr., who recused himself in August of 2011, declared in Mr. Class's April 21, 2011 hearing that the defendants were not private entities or private contractors, but were public officials. And are judges confused? Are these government agencies and officials not what they are portraying to their constituents? Are they immune because they're private? Do we actually have government agencies and elect public officials, or do we deal with private entities? And is the public being frauded? So many questions and so many conflicts, i.e., this is law. That's a law case. So they're on the run, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, that's what it
looks like. Now, once you have an issue like this, which establishes the federal question, that means state lines don't count anymore, does it? Because it is the federal question, therefore it's a national issue, and due to the fact that the U.S. has transferred their seats of government to the IMF, International Monetary Funds, under the Jesuits, under the United Nations, therefore the United Nations, the High Court of Justice, they can be charged with racketeering and piracy, can't they? Can't they?
I'm gonna say yeah, but I'm still new to it, so I'm with you.
So I'm giving you information, so I'm showing you how obvious this is. That while our people are asleep, they know the real deal. They're trying to liquidate.
Definitely.
You see the point?
Oh yeah, I understand the concept where you're coming from. Definitely.
Meaning that our people need to be up on what's really happening in the world, because while they're asleep, sitting around deciding what school of thought they want to deal with, their estate is being liquidated.
And they're doing it right in front of our face.
Yeah.
Hey. I want to say thank you to the caller.
No doubt. Hey, man, I'm waiting on y'all to bring them classes down here, too, man, to the ATL, so I definitely attend.
Absolutely. They're coming, fam.
All right, man.
Hey. Thanks. Peace.
Peace.
Okay. Peace. Family, it is 11:54. If you want to continue this conversation with us, please call 347. That's 347-637-2135. That's 347-637-2135. Brother Taj, I ask that you please stay with us. I do have a few more callers in the call queue, and I would like to get to everyone if possible. You know what I'm saying? Because the family does have some poignant questions. Okay, caller from the 240-442. That's 240-442. Peace.
Peace.
Oh, the lads. Peace. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, everything good to the brothers. Thank you for the beautiful guests. Yes, sir. I got a couple of questions for you, Brother Bey.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I want to ask you about Well, first of all, when we talk about everything going on with us finding out about our heritage with things with Moorish and things like that, and you spoke a little bit about what I want to ask about to get to the point. I remember Jonah in that story, and it speaks about it in the Quran, how did he got and also in the Bible, how did he got the people to repent and to pray, and that they were able to, have the Lord on their side because of that, or just, our overseers, or our creators, or the originator of creation, however we want to look at it, not to get caught up in that point of it.
Yes.
But you said something about prayer, and I wanted to know from you what you mean by it, because I like what you said about not being in that begging mode. But at the same time, Brother Bey, I want to be humble. I want to prostrate myself to my creators, and I want to know what approach that you suggest with that with taking me away from the begging.
Now let's make something very, very clear so that the people understand. When we do the ritual, because you already know that we're Hebrew and that we're really Yahudi as well as Muslim, whereas our people keep thinking that these are different religions, these are degrees of our culture.
Yes, sir.
And we are all of those things. And one of the problems that people have when we talk about prostrating, just like when we do the ritual of prostrating, when we pray, etc., most of the masses are never told that prayer is the first degree. The second degree is meditation. The third degree, or ascended degree, is contemplation. And most of the masses are kept on the prayer degree, which is actually for children. That's not to condemn it, it's not to misrepresent it. But it means that the high priests are not really teaching them the degrees. The other issue, when we're dealing with the prostration, what that is symbolic of us really being humble, as you say, to overcome the animal form that we choose to use to navigate in the physical plane, but that the spirit man is above that. So it creates a conflict. And it's an understanding of the bodies, or the levels, 7 levels of the bodies, and our ascension, or what they may call in the different, what you call dogmatic systems of either ascension, kundalini, the activation of the chakras, all meaning the same thing, etc., and caduceus, all meaning the same thing, understanding that it's actually the development of the body, or as we say, becoming conscious of the levels of the bodies and starting to take control of them. And all of the things that people are given in ritualistically and what they've been calling religions are only rituals that represent the mathematical analysis of that processes and not really what people think is worship. And it has been misrepresented by the high priesthood, which is why we have no cures, because we have fallen in love with the rituals and don't understand the real Gnostic science behind it for the healing of the body and for all living creatures, which is actually the osis of the gnosis. And the masses have never been given religion. They've been given dogma and told it's religion. And so the darkness that the world is in right now is the fault of the high priesthood and not the mythical devil that they themselves created to put us in darkness. Therefore, people must be told the truth of what prayer is, the truth of what meditation is, the truth of what contemplation is, and they must be raised in degrees from the living, from the living, from the dead level to the living perpendicular, being upright in principle. And so, therefore, they must be taught the added principles of true religion, of cosmogony and cosmology, and told the truth of cosmos and isonomy. And you know and I know that it has not been delivered to the masses, and that is the darkness.
Brother Bey.
Yes.
I find for myself that when I do get on my knees and put my head on the floor too, and now sometimes I'll put my arms behind me and lift my toes off the ground and point them backwards. That might seem weird or whatever. That doesn't matter.
It's
something that my soul feels real strongly with.
Well,
go ahead, excuse me.
Those are exercises. And you know what it is? Those are exercises. It's called the yoke or the binding. And in philosophy, it's called yoga. i.e., it is causing the centers of the pineal gland and the pituitary gland to become active because it exercises muscles that aren't commonly used, getting the breath to all the organs. And breath is really the science of spirit. And spirituality is the art of breathing, not a belief system.
Yes, sir.
That's why it's effective.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that, because I know it's very effective with me, and I don't want to be begging, but I do like to ask for more patience, and I like to increase in patience.
Understand that I'm not condemning it. I'm explaining it.
And I thank you for that.
All right, good brother.
No.
Thanks, brother.
Please don't go. I got another question about Malcolm X earlier. Could you touch more on what you were saying about Malcolm X coming into the knowledge of?
Let's put it this way: when you had the great infiltration into the Moorish movement in the late 20s, between 27 and 1932, you already passed the form in 29. You had a lot of these, which I won't name right now, but people who go do some research into the federal papers, etc., and the FBI papers will find out for themselves. Most of your so-called black organizations that ended up being powerful are actually derivatives from the Moorish movement by virtue of a sellout. Now, a lot of that information concerning the sellout has been pretty much hush-hush, whether it's Moorish Americans or other organizations that are derivative from that, and it's documented. Now, one of the problems that Il Malik ran into actually a French Muslim who schooled him that, that black and white thing is a fiction that only has to do with social engineering here in North America, even though it's been exported into other countries, and that there's no such people, and that because he made the Hajj, he's not visiting home, he left home. What that is in world circles of secret societies is called the 360-degree Masonic secret, i.e. the Great Seal, that the keepers of the North Gate have been keeping the heirs of the estate, which they do by ritual called Hiram Mabith, unaware that they're actually the heirs and the grand architects, i.e. Malcolm left home. That he recognized that there was nowhere to run. But they couldn't buy him off because he was honorable, so they murdered him.
Thank you for that, for honoring that brother like that. I want to say one thing to everybody out here, to all of us, that, there's a story there in all of the books, and it talks about when the Syrian army or whatever army, we can put this at any time and on any of our brothers and sisters, that the whole army was in front of them, and some people around him was all worried, but then he said to him, our mother and our father are greater than any army. I just want to leave that with everybody with these times here. And Brother Bey, thank you so much. You've done so much for me in this one call that you've had for these couple hours you've been on the phone. Know the ledge. I owe such a gratitude to you all as well. Love and gratitude. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Everything good to all of you all. Thank you.
Right on, good brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Shalom, brother. Peace. Okay, let's go directly into the next call. Caller from the 215-407. Caller. Peace.
Peace.
From the 215-407. Peace. Okay, caller from the 337-852. Caller.
Peace, Sandy.
Peace.
Peace. Can you speak up?
Can you hear me better, fam?
Yes, indeed. Peace.
Islam.
Peace, Islam. This brother Tarik calling out in Houston. I just want to give thanks, and I really appreciate the pills, how you guys are conducting yourselves on the show. And I really appreciate the information. And Brother Taj, I can't put into words. There's no temples down here, but I'm in depth in contract law. I am a sovereign, and we're giving them hell out here. And it's I reached out a few months ago. You know what I'm saying? It's really open out here. It's a lot of land out here. A lot of people are claiming their land, and there's a lot of nation building out here going on out here. So listening out to the brothers, and I really appreciate their sight. And a jewel to, I think that was blue. You know what I mean? Because you know what I mean. People pretty adept on that redemption process. You know what I mean?